and he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Well, you know, I say a very good morning, but goodness me, there's an awful lot of, should we say, international news that isn't good news, although some good news on the domestic front. We'll get to all of those topics, and whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is fantastic to have your company today. Do keep in touch with us. Get in touch with us on the phone lines, and I'll give you all those details in a few moments. But also, if you do miss any of the show, don't forget you can go to my YouTube page. We called it the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, so you can find it very easily. You hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, this is going to be a surprise to you. Hamas has declared victory for, they say, the justice of our cause after Keir Starmer announced Britain would recognise a Palestinian state. In a video message on Sunday, the PM insisted the move was not a reward for Hamas. They beg to differ. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused our Prime Minister of handing a prize for terrorism, while the families of hostages say Britain has now emboldened Hamas. Later in the show, we will be talking to Eli David. He's the brother of hostage Evitar David. Not sure who he is. Well, do you remember the video just a few weeks ago of a hostage being forced, emaciated, skeletal even, clearly starved over the last 2 years, to dig his own grave in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza? We're going to be talking to his brother. I wonder what he thinks about Keir Starmer's decision to recognise a Palestinian state. I think that's worth staying tuned for. Meanwhile, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, he's even admitted that recognising a Palestinian state will not bring a ceasefire, it will not bring aid to the people of Gaza, or the release of the remaining 48 hostages, 20 of whom are believed to be alive. So why are we doing it again? Oh, yes, to appease the left and the Muslim vote, because let's be honest, that's what this is about. Oh, we're going to be talking about all of that with lots of top guests. Also going to talk about major policy announcement yet again on a Monday from Nigel Farage. He's today pledging to eject hundreds of thousands of legal migrants in an unprecedented reversal of Britain's relaxed border rules. The Reform UK leader will unveil plans to force all migrants with permanent residency, those given indefinite leave to remain, to reapply for visas under stricter criteria in terms of their English skills, their wages and the like, including those better better standards of English and others, but also we are looking at a huge cost saving if people who are arriving here from abroad are not entitled to benefits and not entitled to council houses. Interesting policy. I wonder how popular that would be. I think we know the answer to that. Plus, at a time when Russian fighter jets are violating Western airspace, NATO should be focused on deterring Russia. However, it seems that gender-inclusive language is also at the top of their agenda, with the military alliance's woke language manual helping to challenge unconscious bias, apparently saying airmen is offensive and must be replaced by the term Air Force personnel. We don't stand a bleeding chance, do we, if we actually go to war? Not a chance. Anyway, all that is coming up, and I want to hear your thoughts. And of course, you know the question is today, Hamas are declaring victory after Keir Starmer announced that Britain would recognise a Palestinian state. What is your reaction to that? Keep it clean or I can't put it out on air. I'm certainly going to struggle to keep it clean today, because the expletives coming out of my mouth when I finally saw that announcement yesterday were absolutely too blue to go on air. But give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. Well, raring to go this morning, as you would understand, is commentator Sam Armstrong, who joins us in the studio regularly on a Monday. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's not possible to convey the level of anger I feel towards our Prime Minister. I hold no candle for this man anyway. I think the man is an empty vessel, devoid of all morality, competence and vision and philosophy anyway, totally evidenced by his last year or so in office. There was a pledge in the Labour manifesto they would recognise a Palestinian state, when at the right time. We knew it was going to come. We knew this was all being done ahead of the General Assembly meeting of the UN in New York happening this week. The actual announcement, though, it still kind of hits you in the stomach. We are talking about recognising a Palestinian state that has no current agreed borders, no government other than Fatah running the Palestinian Authority and Hamas running Gaza, both of whom are pledged effectively to the destruction of the neighbouring state of Israel. Hamas claiming victory, claiming its reward for October the 7th. A state that is currently already on the Foreign Office website. Is literally, they're recognising it as the Palestinian state. It's already happened. It's not going to happen. It's already happened. But a state that has no real meaning in any international law, being recognised by a government that claims they're obsessed with international law, basically completely in defiance of all morality, all common sense, our own national self-interest, and certainly the national self-interest of what should be our greatest ally in the Middle East, the only democratic state of Israel.
If you're the kind of person that is concerned about migration and wants something done, Keir Starmer doesn't like you and has got nothing to offer you. If you're the kind of person that wants to fly the St George's flag, Keir Starmer sneers at you and warns you not to. If your name is Mahmoud Mardour and you are a senior Hamas figure, an actual terrorist, Keir Starmer has a gift to offer you. The priorities of this man are set in the face of the country that he leads. This is a Prime Minister who is working against our interests in order to save his own skin. I want to bring up one thing, because the Prime Minister turns around and he says, well, this is about international law, this is about recognising countries, it is a country, it's got nothing to do with rewarding Hamas. Consider this for a moment. 6,000 miles to the east, there is an island of 70, 80 million people that is a full-grown democracy, one of our best allies, huge supporters, trades with us enormously, the global hub of semiconductor manufacturing. It's called Taiwan. The British government does not recognise Taiwan. Doesn't, despite the fact it's got a functioning government, well-defined borders, democratic, shares our values, shares everything. Everything we want in a country, we don't recognise it. Why? Because we're too scared of offending the Chinese. These decisions, in the end, come down to priorities. And Keir Starmer has never met a despot, a dictator, a criminal that he doesn't fancy sucking up to. And this just follows in a litany, a line in his career that starts with representing terrorists in the High Court and it finishes with bolstering their interest when he enters Downing Street. This is a man whose principles make him, in my opinion, an enemy of the country that he leads.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It is absolutely, it's soul destroying. And it's the fact that these people, again, think that they are. I mean, I genuinely think they kid themselves that they are doing this for the moral good, because what's happening in Gaza is so horrific and so awful. When most of what we're seeing from Gaza is just Hamas propaganda. Yes, innocent people are dying, children are dying. It's horrific. That happens in every war. It happened when we took on the Nazis. It happened when we took on ISIS, when we took on, the Taliban forces and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. This is what happens in war. It's happening in all the wars around the world. And yet, the only real focus of the United Nations, the British left and everywhere is, and American left and France and everywhere else, is this obsession with what is going on in Gaza. They uniquely care about those children. When those children are being put in harm's way, who by Israel? No, they didn't launch the October 7th attack. Oh, and it all started back in 1948. No, sorry. Abject nonsense. The reason why there is a war in Gaza right now, and there are IDF forces in Gaza City right now, is because of the Hamas attack on October the 7th, almost 2 years ago. Full stop, end of. That is all there is to know about this. And the extraordinary thing is that Hamas has a deliberate policy of putting children and civilians into harm's way deliberately so that they will die. They want their civilians, their children, to die as part of their war aims. And guess what? They've just been rewarded for it. And this is the really terrifying thing, is people think this is just about over there. Our government, the French today, the Australians, Canadians yesterday as well, who all in recognising a Palestinian state, have sent a message out loud and clear to every single organisation, terror group, every organisation wanting to overthrow their state. Every single one has been sent a message. Commit a massacre. Basically, force a war to be started upon you by people who have to defend their own homeland. At that point, put as many civilians as you can into harm's way. Take hostages. Refuse to hand them all back unless, with a gun to your head. And then we will give you what you want. Because the West is weak and lily-livered and doesn't know what it stands for anymore, and doesn't understand that Israel is the bastion, the only bastion in the Middle East. Sod Qatar and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and all those other countries. No, I'm sorry. Israel is the only democratic state. It's the only nation that shares our values, the Western values, in the Middle East, and it's the one that we should be siding with above all at all times. And the condemnation of Israel on a daily basis, when so little talk about Yemen and Sudan and every other war ongoing in this world, we know what it's about. Let's not pussyfoot around that. We know what it's about. This is part of a whole stirring up from bots, whether it's Russia or it's China, whether it's Iran, elsewhere, on the left, of really basic medieval anti-Semitism, and which is just an attack on a state which happens to be a Jewish state. I'm sorry, but I'm more and more convinced of this every day, that is the ultimate reason behind this. Because fundamentally, I mean, Israel is doing not only nothing different from what any other nation state would do in the face of the threat they face, they have done so much more in terms of trying to protect human life and civilian life than any other Western nation would do in the same circumstances. And I am utterly befuddled on a daily basis how people cannot see the clear black, white, good, evil debate here and know which side to be on.
Look, as you say, you can tell where people are coming from by the priorities that they have. Yeah. Let's start for a minute by just looking at Muslim victims of violence around the world. You have over 1 million Chinese Uyghur Muslims stuck in concentration camps.
No one cares.
You have enormous violence towards the Rohingya Muslims in Burma.
Yep, no one cares about them, apparently.
Muslims massacred every day right across Africa, in which you hear not a whiff.
Biggest victims of ISIS, ISIS and Al-Qaeda were Muslims?
You don't hear a thing. There is one place you hear about, and it is Israel. And let's just be really clear. The left have a problem. They've always had a problem with Jews. The principal reason is that Jews have always been a minority community. They've always been an immigrant community. And despite that, despite the supposed racism that's always existed in the West, the Jewish community, wherever they have settled, have been incredibly successful. In business, in governments, in media, in every single sphere, they've been successful. And they've been successful for a really clear reason, because the Jewish people, wherever they have gone, have carried a religion with them, which has values, you might call them Judeo-Christian values, they're shared values, in which hard work, personal responsibility, family, are all taken seriously. All the things that conservatives for years have been telling you will make wherever you are, whatever you're doing in life, more likely to be successful. And Jews have, wherever they have gone on the earth, put the lie to the leftist claim that racism is running through our communities left, right and centre. And as a result, they have committed a cardinal sin, and the left have never forgiven them for doing that. And as a result, no matter who they're up against, no matter how virtuous their cause, the left will fight for their opponents. That's the truth of it.
It's as simple as that. And when, in terms of the reasons for Keir Starmer to do this, or he thinks he's a good person, it's the latest cause on social media. But the main thing is, this is about appeasing his left-wing, Labour backbenchers, but also huge pressure on the left. We've got the Gaza MPs. The threat to Labour on the left is huge from Hezbollah. Whatever Jeremy Corbyn's next new party iteration is going to be, with or without various members who Sultana and others. But at the end of the day, he knows you've got a massive big block of Muslim voters who care absolutely passionately about this issue and have been propagandised into thinking a certain way on this issue. This could decide a huge number of seats, especially when you've got that threat from another left-wing party, but also the threat from Reform. And this is about appeasing a particular sectarian vote in this country. I'm sure that'll end up working out well, Sam.
Julia, this is controversial to say, but let's take a step back. Firstly, politics is about collecting different groups of people that hold similar views together, building a coalition. If you do that, you win. The left has always the Labour Party has always needed the progressive left, and it's always needed the Muslim vote in this country. It has done for 30 years. Now, it's controversial to say this, but poll after poll of both the progressive left and the Muslim community in this country reveals that both of those groups, unfortunately, hold unacceptably high anti-Semitic views. You ask, I'm afraid to say it, there have been a number of polls to this effect. The British Muslim community, do Jews have too much power in the media? Do Jews control finance, etc.? And an unacceptably high number will say, yes, they do.
These are basic anti-Semitic tropes. But this is a view also of many young people under 30s, because they're sitting there on social media and they're just believing all this stuff. It is genuinely terrifying. Look, I want to hear from you. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Understandably, a lot of calls already on the board. Motivations for Keir Starmer doing this. How will this play out? What should we do? Don't forget, I'm going to be talking to the brother of the hostage, Eli David, who's actually being held captive right now, one of the 20 believed still to be alive in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza. He was the man who was forced to dig his own grave for a propaganda video. These are the animals we're dealing with, by the way. Small point, worth making. We've got lots more top guests coming on the show as well, but I want to also talk about what's going on at home. Nigel Farage, another big announcement every Monday. You've been joking for many weeks about how, the Monday morning announcement from Keir Starmer. Well, we had it on Sunday yesterday. Again, Matt, it's gonna go horribly wrong for him on this. It really will. But Nigel Farage often coming in with his big announcement. He's pledging to end indefinite leave to remain for many millions of people who've arrived in this country, including 3.8 million who came as part of the Boris wave. Because when we count immigrants coming in, often we're not counting all the dependents, not counting the children. And I think there were 1.2 million arrivals, not the net arrivals, but the number of arrivals in just 1 year under the Boris wave. They're just handing out visas like confetti. So people who came here legally to work, but nevertheless people who within 5 years would be given indefinite leave to remain. Then they can claim benefits, council housing, everything, and then become a drain on society. And of course, by saying, you'd have to reapply and saying we're going to have a higher threshold, I think it's about 35 grand a year earnings, you're not a net contributor on 35 grand, unfortunately. You've got to be on about 45 plus to be a net contributor. Certainly if your wife isn't working, which is usually the situation in a lot of these families, and you've got 3 kids, you are definitely a drain on the economic, situation for the UK. And even if you're doing a fantastic job and a very important job, but we've got 6 million unemployed working age people in this country. I'm pretty sure we can get those people back to work when they don't have the option of benefits. But also talking about expelling hundreds of thousands of migrants, non-Brits, if you come here, you're not able to claim benefits, you're not able to claim a housing, council house and the like. I mean, I don't know why anyone on the left would ever complain about this, because they've been telling us for about 3 decades that all these people coming from abroad are a net benefit to us, and that they're all earning good money and contributing. So why on earth would it be a problem if we say, well, you can't claim any benefits or council housing, because well, they wouldn't be anyway, would they? Of course, that will betray the lie of that. But we are talking about, not just deporting illegal migrants, people who've come on lorries or on the boats or have overstayed visas often for many years. We're talking about people who come here legally on a promise of being able, if you do the right thing, you work hard, blah, 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 you can end up staying here. That may run into some difficulties, may it not?
Well, I disagree, actually. I think, these people came here. They got paid vastly more than what they were earning in their home country. That's why they came here. And we are under no obligation to say to people, well, just because when you came here the rules were this, that the rules are going to stay that indefinitely. I want, frankly, every one of these people that is not a net contributor to our country to go home. And there's a very simple reason for that, because I think that people who come into our country, they carry just beyond the economic circumstances all sorts of risks, actually. I think when you admit millions of people, even if they were all economic contributors, if the cultural change that resulted in that level of migration was there, I still think that is harmful and upsetting and distressing for many people who are here already. So can we just at least say that the bar, the judge, the point at which we set the test is, are you contributing just at least economically? Yeah. And that is a entirely reasonable point of view.
Speaking the language, so you can't contribute. You can't contribute to local school. You can't if you're not speaking English and you're part of the. If you're so desperate to come to this country, you'd probably bother to learn. If I was going to go and live in another country, I would learn the language. I don't think. I mean, and I feel the same way about people who go to live in Spain and don't bother learning a single word, other than adios or whatever.
But ultimately, we have the right, as a country, to set the bar of who comes in,
up to us,
who gets to stay here, and who gets to be normalised as a British national.
We can take our 6 million unemployed people and all these people claiming they're sick on a lovely autumnal Monday morning, and just say, well, I'm so sorry, these benefits are no longer available to you, but look at all these jobs you can have. I'm saying we could do this. It's going to be a revolution. If this happens, it's going to be a revolution. And I'm here for it, I have to say. Love to hear your thoughts on that as well. 0344 499 1000. So much more I want to talk about, including Erica Kirk saying she forgives Charlie Kirk's assassin. She's a better woman than me, I have to say, and what's been going on at the Lib Dem conference. Of course, we should have been leading the entire show on Lib Dem conference only. And of course, second runway at Gatwick finally getting approval. I mean, how long do these things take in this country, for goodness sake? We'll get to all that coming up. Lots of top guests, lots of top calls coming as well. We'll get to those up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
So Mark Rowley, in response to the public furore over the arrest of Graham Linehan by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow, again, just for social media posts a few weeks ago, he said that the reason the police were overreacting in this way to complaints about supposedly offensive social media posts is because their hands are tied. The law in this area is unclear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Look, we've managed not to swear since 10 o'clock. Haven't we done well, given the news today? Keir Starmer has, not just that was yesterday's news, but Keir Starmer recognising a Palestinian state. Go to the Foreign Office website for travel advice. Already there, Palestinian state. You can't go to most of it, by the way, because it's not safe. Oh, I wonder why that is. Oh, right, no, but it's because it's run by terrorists. Yeah, that's why. Hamas, Fatah. And if you think the Palestinian Authority are the Lib Dem coalition of that coalition, really, really not. But there we are. But we've managed to get through on that. But also talking about reform and their promise to deport a huge number of people who've come here legally, saying, like, frankly, if you don't get indefinite leave to remain, sorry, we've got enough people here. Thank you very much. That's a policy a lot of us would support. Love to hear your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. But in particular, I want to hear from you on what you make of Hamas declaring victory. Who would have thought they'd do that after Keir Starmer announced Britain recognises a Palestinian state? Let's talk to Susie in Hertfordshire, just got in touch about that. Susie, what do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
I mean, furious. Genuinely furious.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I feel a bit lost today. I'm so angry and I don't know what to do with my anger. What was done yesterday, firstly, I have to say thank you so much for being a light in a very, very dark world, especially for the Jewish community of this country.
Genuinely, Susie, I've had so many people say that. I had the President of Israel tweeting my monologue from last Monday and saying thank you. I don't think anyone should have to thank anyone for understanding the basic difference between right and wrong, and good and evil. I think this is such an easy black and white issue. I am absolutely befuddled how anyone could be on the wrong side. I really am.
Well, the stupidity is that David Lammy went on to Trevor Phillips yesterday, and says that they see Israel returning to the 1967 borders, and that will be Palestine. Well, Golda Meir, who was the original Iron Lady, gave a speech and said if they were so happy with the 1967 borders, why did they go to war in 1967?
They refused to. People have been. Israel has agreed to and offered a Palestinian state 4 times, and 4 times it's been rejected. They don't want a Palestinian state. They want the destruction of Israel.
Absolutely. But not only that. In 2005, when we left Gaza, that was, quote unquote, a Palestinian state.
Yep, off you go.
They self-governed. And what happened? The Second Intifada. And what happened? October the 7th.
Yep.
And people say, only 1,400 people were killed.
Yeah.
That's 1,400 different worlds that were taken.
Yep.
And what Keir Starmer has done, firstly, he's put a target on every Jewish person in the United Kingdom's head.
Why do you say that?
Well, because the thing is rewarding terrorism, but killing Jews.
Yeah.
We've all got a target on our head now. Yeah. You know, when the people that drove through central London calling to rape the children and the wives of...
Never been prosecuted. I don't know why. We need to organise a private prosecution of them.
They didn't even see inside their courtroom.
No.
It was dropped. There's video footage. And yesterday, during all of these grandiose speeches about the Palestinian people, Hamas executed 3 people in Gaza in front of crowds who were all shouting their famous saying, one of which I won't lower myself to
and then they all filed past and spat on the bodies. They were supposed collaborators. Summary execution, no trial, nothing. Those are the people. They videoed it. Those are the people who are basically going to be running a Palestinian state. Here's my favourite thing about Keir Starmer on this, which is that Hamas will have no role in any Palestinian state. They cannot have any role. So, as a colonial power, we're going to dictate who they elect. We know the reason why Fatah isn't having more elections in the West Bank is because they'd lose to Hamas.
Yeah.
I know.
But not only that, if Hamas got voted in again, what's the UK going to do? Oh, sorry, no, they're not a legitimate government, and yet they're quoting the non-legitimate government's figures when it comes to how many people have been killed.
Yep, Susie, we live in a mad, mad world. What can I say? Thank you. I feel your pain today. I really do. Stuart is on the line. He's in Wigan. Hello, Stuart. What do you want to say?
I just, first of all, can I just say that you're not on your own with Erica Kirk, because she's a far better person than I am as well.
Oh, we're talking about Erica Kirk saying she forgives Charlie Kirk's killer. Yeah. Oh, God, I couldn't do it.
No. And can I also say to Israel and the Jewish people all over the world, the majority of the people, apart from the useful idiots in this country, are backing them all the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're backing them all the way, full stop. But to my point with Starmer and Lammy and what have you, I thought treason was it was a death penalty. Doing.
Okay, you're talking about that in the context of there being a sort of a criminal case for treason, and that used to be the death penalty. We don't have a death penalty anymore. We're not calling for any extrajudicial violence because that's not what we do. But you're saying they have committed treason.
Not at all. But treason used to be, you know what I mean? It was a death penalty, weren't it?
I mean, they are acting against the best interests of the British state and the British people. I couldn't agree with you more. Stuart, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I understand the context of what he was saying. He's not calling for, people not calling for political violence, talking about a criminal trial. Just quick reaction from Sam Armstrong to both those calls.
Well, I think there's a reflection rather, of the level of upset, the level of anger in the country at the actions of their own government. Yeah. And this is not getting better. Season 2 or whatever it is of what Keir Starmer...
What are we in now? Are we in phase 48 yet? Because the last lot didn't go well.
It's no better than phase 1.
Absolutely. Well, let's wait. I'm just looking forward to the season finale. When's that going to come? 10:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to very much a former Labour Party spokesman, James Matthewson. What does he make of Hamas declaring victory after the Palestinian state has been recognised by Britain, Australia, Canada and also by France later today? This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. Coming up, we're going to be talking about NATO and those airspace violations by Russia. Could they be accidental by Putin's fighter jets, or could they be testing NATO's resolve? And what should we do about it? We're talking to a former Royal Navy Commander, Dr. Chris Parry, about that. First up, though, let's talk to James Mathewson. He's a political commentator. He was, a long time ago, a Labour Party spokesman, but certainly not anymore, no longer a member of the Labour Party. But let's find out what James makes of the big announcement yesterday from Keir Starmer that Britain will be recognising a Palestinian state. Very good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Was it the right thing for Keir Starmer to do?
It was, but it was very long overdue. The frustration that I'm hearing this morning, very different to the frustration that you're hearing and that I've heard from your callers already this morning. The frustration I'm hearing is that this wasn't done anywhere near soon enough, and that it doesn't go far enough. And of course, it seems to be too little too late with regard to any action that the Prime Minister could take to stop what is a genocide being committed in Gaza.
OK, A, it's not a genocide. B, should it have been done on October the 8th, 2023? If we're going to reward Hamas, should we have just done it straight away?
So it's not a reward for Hamas.
Hamas they think it is. Why do they think it is?
Right. Well, I don't care what terrorists think, Julia.
No, but if they think it's a reward, then it is a reward, right?
Yeah, but we don't govern with terrorists in mind, do we? We govern with what's right and what is the right thing to do.
Gaza is run by Hamas terrorists. And
terrorists, yeah. It's not a state, not a country.
Yeah. No, it's not exactly. It's not a state. The West Bank is run by the Palestinian Authority, which is run by Fatah. By the way, if there were elections, not that anyone's had elections for 20 years, Hamas on the polling now would win. So the whole thing would be run by Hamas
We don't acknowledge people's human rights and their rights to govern and have their own state based on Poland, do we? And if we don't like the results, unfortunately, there is still a situation here whereby if Palestinian recognition is not given sooner or later, and by the way, I still think, even if it is given now, which it has been, that it won't make a difference. I don't think it will make a difference to what the outcome is going to be. I think Benjamin Netanyahu is going to wipe the Palestinian people from Gaza. I think he is going to occupy Gaza. I think they're going to develop it alongside with the Americans, and Donald Trump and his cabinet will be playing Gaza.
Here's the thing. You say there's a genocide. There isn't. I mean, on no basis anyone
there
is playing
it.
On
many bases.
What do you think the word genocide means?
Okay, well, every international body...
Every captured international body, yeah.
Sorry, no, every international body that recognises genocide has recognised this as a genocide, so I don't know what more you want.
The British government doesn't recognise it as a genocide.
The British government is not. The British and the American governments are complicit in that genocide.
Complicit.
Of course they're not going to recognise it.
Okay, the United Nations report didn't mention Hamas until quite a few pages in, didn't even mention... didn't even mention October the 7th, only vaguely mentioned tunnels and vaguely mentioned hostages.
They've had separate reports on October.
Separate reports. Oh, okay, right.
Yes, because that's a separate issue to the genocide.
The ratio of combatant to non-combatant deaths is better than any war we or any other nation has ever fought ever in the history of the world. But you think they're committing genocide? I put it to you: the Israeli forces have proved themselves, and the Israeli government, to be fantastic at not only they've got military might, military capability, strategic capability in how they've taken on Iran, how they've taken on Hezbollah in Lebanon. I suggest you that if they wanted to commit a genocide in Gaza, they could have done so.
Well, Julia, if I thought you were capable of feeling shame, I would say that you should be ashamed of those remarks. But I know that you're not.
I'm making a factual point. They are capable of genocide, and they haven't done it.
Oh, wonderful. Who do you think is more capable of making the decision as to whether that genocide is being committed? The people who are committing it, the people who are complicit in it, or the people who are scholars in the definition of genocide?
Well, I hate to tell you, some of those bodies, actually, I could sign up and say I'm a genocide scholar and I would be counted on their band.
No, I'm sorry. Every single expert in that field internationally.
No, that's not true. That's simply not. That is simply not. That's a statement that is a lie. End of.
The only people pushing back on this are people who are blinded by their loyalty to Israel, or people who have interests in Israel.
I have no interest in Israel, never taken a penny from Israel.
We know your opinion. I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying that the opinion
I'm
of
not
the British
blinded.
media.
I'm not blinded. I just know right from wrong. Here's the thing. What's going to happen? So let's just say, got a Palestinian state. There's no agreed borders. They've never agreed to any of the borders that have been offered to them, and there are 4 times that the Palestinians have been offered a state. They've rejected it every time. We've got no clear government. We've got Hamas ruling one part, Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, ruling the other. If there were elections, Hamas, it is very likely, would win in the West Bank as well. So they'd be running the whole of the 2 separate parts of the constituent parts. Keir Starmer has said Hamas can play no part in any future governance of a Palestinian state. It's a bit colonial, isn't it, for the Prime Minister to say, we get to decide who your government is?
Yeah.
So, but you'd be happy for Hamas to be running a Palestinian state?
No, of course not. I don't.
Okay, so which is it? So how can it be a Palestinian state?
I'm not happy for the Taliban to be running Afghanistan. But
so
do I
we
believe
do get to decide who
But do
people
I
vote
know?
for?
No, I'm not happy about it. But do I believe in self-determination of a people? Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
As
so
do
you think that Israel, after what's happened on October the 7th, hostages still being held in tunnels, being starved and beaten and used in propaganda videos right now, you think that Israel should say, we should absolutely have the people who did that and who have said openly, we do that every day if we could,
but
living next door.
Applying that same logic, okay, applying that same logic to the Palestinian people, if you had an option of who to vote for and who to support after your child had been blown limbs apart by an occupying military force, who would you be backing?
Tell you what, I wouldn't be backing. Wouldn't be backing Hamas, who deliberately put children and other civilians in harm's way.
The young men who are furious. I don't condone the actions of any terrorist organisation,
nice.
but the young men who have anger and want to put it somewhere are being led by the likes of Hamas to put it in them and put their trust in them.
I asked you a question about Israel,
military occupation.
I asked you a question about Israel. Should Israel accept having a terrorist organisation that committed that massacre on those people and has vowed to do it again and again and again and is committed to the destruction of the Israeli state and the Jewish people, should they go, yes, absolutely fine, we sign up to that and we'll sit next to the UN? Should they do that?
Well, Israel isn't a thing collectively or homogeneously.
Israel is
Israel's
a
obviously
country with a
state and
democratically elected government.
Yeah, but barely democratically elected.
It is a Democrat. It's a Democrat. Look, I don't hold a candle for Benjamin Netanyahu, but he's a democratically elected prime minister of the country.
Delay because of his corruption charges. This is a man who is
it's irrelevant. I asked you. No, it's irrelevant.
Benefiting from the hostages not coming back.
For the love of God, answer the question I've asked you. I've tried twice now.
What do I think the Israeli people should do? I think what the Israeli people should do, Julia, get rid of their corrupt government. A man who is being charged.
They can get rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's fine. If they did that,
it's irrelevant. And a genocide because of that.
It's irrelevant. Should Israel, as an entity, the same way as Britain as an entity has recognised the Palestinian state, should Israel accept a Palestinian state on their borders run by Hamas? Yes or no?
They should accept a Palestinian state on their borders,
whoever it's run by.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the question. Yes. So would we, for instance...
They don't have a choice in that.
They don't have a choice, except they do. Would we, at Britain, let's just say we had a land, let's say we have a land border with, say, France or Germany, which we don't, but nevertheless, if we did, would we accept, say, the Nazis remaining in power in Germany at the end of the Second World War and say, well, if the German people want to elect the Nazis, that's up to them.
It's interesting. You've brought up the Nazis, I haven't, so I mean it's an interesting comparison to make. But when I look at the crimes that are being committed by Israel and I look at the comparisons to 1930s Germany, they are horrendous. Of course you do.
No one doubted you didn't think that.
No, because
I asked you again. I've asked you a question, James.
People on the streets of this country, people on the streets of America are shouting these questions loudest, and it's on these extreme right-wing media channels like yours.
I'm not an extreme right-wing.
Just are in the minority in being upset.
But why don't you answer the question?
Why are you putting so much effort into defending a genocidal maniac in Benjamin Netanyahu?
Okay,
why?
They're not committing genocide. I'm not defending Benjamin Netanyahu.
You're in denial
I'm defending the right of the Israeli people to maintain their state and safety.
You don't have a right to kill children. Children don't have nobody has the right to kill children.
No, you should have told Hamas, your mates in Hamas that.
Hamas don't have the right to kill children. They're terrorists.
But we've just rewarded them for it. We've just rewarded them for it. They've just told us it was a reward. It was a victory.
Israel is supposed to be better. It's a nation
state. It is better, and that's why Israel doesn't put its own civilians or Palestinian civilians in harm's way. That's why they warn. That's why they That's why they evacuate cities. That's why they send warnings, text messages.
Great. Yeah, the cities they're not even meant to be in, Julia. They've just killed American citizens in Lebanon.
Let me come back to the. I think you'll find most Lebanese people are absolutely thrilled that Hezbollah has been defeated on the streets.
I'm sure.
I'm absolutely sure. Polling's very clear on that one.
I'm sure the family of the man and 3 kids
at the risking of breaking the habit of a lifetime, could you try and answer the question? Should we have left the Nazis in power in Germany at the end of the Second World War?
It's a ridiculous comparison.
It's a very reasonable comparison.
No, it's a ridiculous comparison. Because the Nazis were invading Europe. We're on a campaign
of domination. What do you think Hamas did on October the 7th?
Even I don't pretend, even when I believe that removing the Nazis from power, defeating Nazi Germany was one of the greatest achievements of this last century, in that, do not believe that Winston Churchill would have bothered himself to invade Germany had they not been invading other countries. That was the main issue there.
Hamas invaded Israel. Hamas and the Palestinian Authority run by Fatah have vowed the destruction of the Israeli state. That is their aim, as funded by Iran, which has also got that as its fundamental aim. How on earth could we, in the same situation, put up with having that on our border and saying, yeah, fine, because we want to keep Keir Starmer and James Mathewson happy?
The answer is that I don't believe in making comparisons between Britain and a Middle Eastern country.
But you'll happily just throw around words like genocide.
The history of that region is hugely, hugely complex.
Very complex.
I don't deny that. The history of these nations is complex.
I don't deny it at all.
But listen, somebody comes along with a magic book written 3,000 years ago and says, we demand to be here. We demand to be here.
As opposed to the magic book written 1,600 years ago.
And you've got 3 different groups of people with different magic books tell you that they're entitled to the land. It's a mess, of course it is. But the best thing to do in that situation is ensure that everybody is given equal opportunity of self-governance.
Which is why the Palestinian people, their representatives, have been offered a Palestinian state on 4 occasions and they said no. We're going to have to leave it there. 10:48 is that that's categoric. They have been offered a state and they've said no every time. 10:48 is the time. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to be talking to Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry about the threat from Russia, because let's not ignore that. Still going on our own borders. This is Talk.
Sir Mark Rowley, in response to the public furore over the arrest of Graham Linehan by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow, again, just for social media posts a few weeks ago, he said that the reason the police were overreacting in this way to complaints about supposedly offensive social media posts is because their hands are tied. The law in this area is unclear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk, the home of common sense. Well, mostly 10:52 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Sam Armstrong still with my guest. Thoughts on what my next guest has to say. He's Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE. He's a former NATO and Royal Navy commander and joins us now to talk about these Russian jets repeatedly violating NATO airspace. A very good morning to you, Chris.
No, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Well, I mean, we had 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets entering Estonian skies without permission for 12 minutes over the Gulf of Finland. We've seen, Italy, Finland, and Sweden scrambled jets. We've had, jets going into Polish and Romanian airspace. All 3 of these countries, of course, being members of NATO. Just first question, you're the military expert, not myself. Could these Russian jets be accidentally wandering into this NATO airspace, or do you think this is deliberate?
Oh, Julia, it's deliberate. I mean, you could probably accept that one would stray in, but a formation of 3 with advanced navigational aids and top training, you're not going to wander in. It's deliberate.
Yeah.
The Russians have been nervous about the Baltic and the Black Sea for the last 200 years. And they're constantly probing the defences and have done throughout history to make sure that they can either dominate or neutralise threats from those directions. And what they're doing is using spare capacity that they're not using in Ukraine to put pressure on NATO. And you and I have discussed this before. When Vladimir Putin's finished with what he's doing in Ukraine, he'll turn the pressure on the Baltic states and will try and get revenge for Sweden and Finland daring to join NATO. I think that's the next.
Yeah, I mean, again, these countries are very clear. They know exactly what the threat is, and again, a lot of the it's not necessarily going to be tanks rolling over the borders in the first instance, just as it wasn't in Ukraine when you look at what they did in Crimea first of all. But when you say probing defences, they're looking to see what the reaction from NATO is. Now, should the reaction from NATO be a wagging of the finger, a calling in of the Russian ambassador, which seems to be what we're doing so far, getting some jets in the air and going, "Ooh, please don't." Should we be shooting down those jets, or is the fear that will start World War III?
Well, Julia, in 2009, a Russian jet violated Turkish airspace for 20 seconds. And it became permanently grounded by the Turkish air defence system.
Yeah.
Guess what?
That was in relation to Syria, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But there haven't been any violations of Turkish airspace since then.
Turkey sent a clear signal. I don't bloody well think so, basically.
Yeah, and what we should be saying now, we know that you're engaged in what we call grey zone warfare. We're seeing espionage, sabotage, cutting of cables and pipelines and things like that. We know that's all part of this very low-level war that you're engaged in with NATO and the free world. And if you do it again, we reserve the right to splash you. That's all we've got to say. We just say, we want to avoid accidents, but be very clear. I'll tell you, Julia, if you put 3 RAF Typhoons across the border into Russian airspace, they wouldn't be coming back.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? He knows he's testing. This is the issue with Western leadership right now, is that actually this fear of taking any action because you've got to escalate. But that was the same argument over Ukraine as well. And this idea that, well, if you don't do anything, then it's okay. Whereas actually Putin takes it as a clear signal of weakness.
Yeah, Julia, all we've got to do is say what is going to happen. It's the same with Taiwan. We have to say to China, if you invade Taiwan, OK, there are consequences. And that consequences means we'll stop buying all your goods. Your economy will collapse in 3 weeks.
Trouble is, so would ours. And they know that. But that's the thing. On Ukraine, I remember the Western leaders sort of congratulated themselves afterwards, saying, Vladimir Putin didn't expect that we would stand so foursquare behind Ukraine and give military aid. You think, no, that's not a success. That's a diplomatic failure. If he'd thought you were going to help that much, he probably wouldn't have invaded.
No, that's right. I mean, I hate to say it, Julia, we discussed this before. We've got leaders in our democracies who don't know how to threaten and use force, and they don't understand the logic of deterrence. More importantly, they don't think like Russians. They think like Westerners. So they think, what would deter us? OK, we'll do that. Russians don't think like that. I was listening to a lecture by a Russian general, and I speak Russian, speaking to a staff course a while ago, and the general was asked by a student, how are we going to solve Ukraine? And he simply said, we will throw corpses at it. And they all got up and clapped.
Yep. That's the reality. We're afraid of even one body bag. Putin and his leadership don't care at all. At the same time, I do think we all worry about our ability to fight, especially the concerns about Donald Trump pulling back from Europe and limiting, I think, some military hardware going to some of those Baltic states, I think to Estonia in particular. But at the same time, our lot are just worried about, diversity, inclusion and equity and all this nonsense, telling people there's a new work language manual from NATO saying that the word airman is offensive, must be replaced by gender neutral, words like Air Force personnel, gender inclusive, worrying about these things. We know that our own Royal Air Force has been selecting personnel for, the best fighter jet, applications. Well, sorry, you're white and you're a straight man, so I'm not sure we want you. We'll have a black woman, please. I mean, this is insane when we could be at war in a few years' time.
Yeah, the whole of our armed forces are infected with this, Julia. And my own view is I don't care what you want to call yourself as long as you can fight.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
The point. I used to say to my sailors and Marines, as long as it's legal and it's decent, you can do what you like with your life as long as you hate the French. It's as simple as that.
And on that note, Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, thank you so much for joining us. Sam Armstrong, that we are in really dangerous territory. We've got lily-livered, weak leaders across the West who don't understand, including Donald Trump, I'm afraid, to how to explain to, forces like Putin's, no.
The world has never been in more danger at any point in our lifetime, and it makes me sick. It makes me sick that the same Royal Air Force that 85 years ago, airmen, got into, and they were always called airmen, got into little Spitfires, got into Hurricanes and took on the greatest armada of attack ever to be launched on this country, and single-handedly, as one country that stood alone, repelled the forces from evil. It is offensive to me, and I think offensive to them, that body is now denigrating them, their views, their values, their language.
Absolutely. And won't fight for our Western values, our nation and our flag anymore. It is a terrifying day. It really is. So much more to talk about. Stay tuned. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. Someone's got to be.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You
It's
just can't
crap.
say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. As I say, someone's got to be. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, so appreciate you joining us. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Commentator Sam Armstrong is also joining us in the studio, and I want to hear from you on all of the big topics on the show as well. Don't forget, you can go to my YouTube page as well, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, and hit subscribe so you never miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking about how Keir Starmer insists that Britain recognising a Palestinian state is not a reward for Hamas. Hamas disagree. They have declared victory for the justice of our cause and called it a reward after that announcement. Absolutely extraordinarily. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Keir Starmer of handing a prize for terrorism, while the families of hostages say Britain has now emboldened Hamas. We are going to be talking to the brother of hostage Eli David a little bit later in the show. He is the man who we saw the most outrageous Hamas propaganda video of, starving, emaciated, looks like he's just come out of a concentration camp, digging his own grave, forced to dig his own grave by Hamas for a propaganda video just a few weeks ago, still being held captive almost 2 years on. We're going to be talking to his brother. Wonder what he thinks about that announcement yesterday. Reward for Hamas? I think we know the answer to that. Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, God help us, is representing Britain at the UN General Assembly today. He's admitted, though, that recognising a Palestinian state won't bring a ceasefire, won't help get aid into Gaza, and it won't help the release of the remaining 48 hostages, 20 of whom are alive. So why are we doing it again? Right now, Nigel Farage is holding a press conference in London where he is unveiling his pledge to reject hundreds of thousands of legal migrants in an unprecedented reversal of Britain's relaxed border rules. If reform in the next election, the Reform UK leader says he's pledging to force all migrants with permanent residency to reapply for visas under strict criteria. So no one will have indefinite leave to remain who's come in recent years. He will require a higher salary threshold and a better standard of English. Would you welcome that? Plus, more migrants than ever are claiming to be modern slaves in order to dodge deportation, with cases rocketing a whopping 250% in 4 years. Thousands trying to play the system to get asylum. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. Why on earth would we expect anyone to use those little loopholes against us? Well, all that is coming up. Lots more to talk about. Sam Armstrong, as I say, is with us. Good morning once again to you.
Good morning.
So much to talk about. I mean, so much to talk about. There's no doubt at all. We've had a sort of left-wing political commentator on the show already, James Mathewson, and we've got David Lammy, Keir Starmer, Vet Cooper, all the great and the good on the left, the nice people, the good kind people. They've all been over the airwaves telling us that recognising a Palestinian state is the right, it's the moral thing to do, and that it's not a victory for Hamas. It doesn't reward Hamas for October the 7th. Trouble is, when they said a few months ago they were going to do this, they said it would be a reward for October the 7th, and the Hamas leadership has stated quite clearly, Mahmoud Mardour, a senior Hamas official, said it represented a victory for Palestinian rights and the justice of our cause, and would send a clear message to Israel. So it's all very well Britain, Canada, Australia, France, other countries recognising a Palestinian state, saying it's not a reward for Hamas. If the terrorists think it is, then it is, isn't it?
The left, they want to pretend that you and I and everyone listening to this is stupid. They want to pretend that we just don't understand it. Absolute balderdash. The facts are these, and they are inescapable. On October the 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organisation, invaded Israel. It murdered its people, it killed babies, it raped women, and it took hundreds of people hostage. It took them back to Gaza, where it hid them underground. And Israel responded by saying, hand over the hostages and lay down your weapons. It refused. In fact, it used those hostages as human shields, as well as the people of Gaza. Israel has fought the most proportionate war in history. It has had the fewest civilian to wartime casualties of any war at any time. Hamas
it's a genocide.
Hamas has made it continually impossible for Israel to prosecute that war by hiding people underground, by booby-trapping everything.
And by using civilians as a human shield.
A practice which kills thousands of innocent-ish Palestinian civilians in Gaza. The British government have, in response to that, what have they done? They have given Hamas what it always wanted most of all, international statehood. What will that mean? That will mean we will have to set up an embassy in Palestine. That will mean that, presumably, that Hamas officials, if they're representing the Palestinian government, will be able to come to the UK, enjoy diplomatic immunity from the fact that they're terrorists.
For any crime, by the way, any crime at all.
They'll be able to go to the UN and pontificate on the global stage about how evil Jews are and what disgusting people they are, and how they must all be turfed out into the Mediterranean Sea and drowned to death. That is what our government has done, and it has done it at a time at which Keir Starmer desperately needs the Muslim vote in this country, or he's going to lose the cabinet at the next election. Those are the facts, and nobody listening to that should ever forget those. They should never accept the fact that they are stupid, or that they don't understand, or that the history is complicated. The facts are the facts. The left can try and get out of them as much as they like, but they are the evil guys. If they're so kind, why are they so often on the same side as actual terrorists that rape and murder and kill? No, they're wrong, we're right, and I won't have anything more said about it.
I mean, this is the most obvious, simple, moral, black and white, good and evil issue of our time. And the fact that so many people who can get it right on Ukraine can't get it right on Israel and Gaza absolutely befuddles me. People say that the history is very complicated. It is very complicated. We've got two peoples, two religions that are claiming rightful ownership of this land. It is a simple matter of fact that the Jewish people existed long before there was any such concept of Palestinianism, long before, thousands of years before Islam was even invented, before the Quran was written. That is a simple matter of historical fact. I actually, as an atheist, I've just got no interest in whether it's anywhere is a particular homeland for a particular religious group or not. That's not my business. At the end of the day, the Palestinians have, when Israel was offered their homeland, the Palestinians have been offered a homeland again and again and again, and 4 times they have rejected it, and 4 times they have launched wars, launched attacks on Israel. They've made it very clear, all of the Palestinian leadership, whether it's Fatah, whether it's Hamas, Palestinian Authority, full funded by Iran, they've made it very clear that their aim is not a Palestinian state that lives in peace in the Middle East. Their aim is one state, not a two-state solution, one state, and that includes the whole of the land of Israel. Look, Israel ain't going anywhere. And I think the one thing that the Israeli people and Jewish people around the world have absolutely learned is the need for Israel when we have seen the violence, the threats, the abuse, the blatant anti-Semitism we have seen across the West in the last few years. It shocked me to my core. I know Jewish families who are genuinely scared of staying in this country, who want to move to and planning to move. I know people who've moved to Israel, where I've been to Israel just a few weeks ago, where there are bomb shelters everywhere, where you have to have an app. So you can get warnings of bomb alerts, where people, your children have to sign up to go and fight in, this conscription army to go and fight to defend your homeland. They're giving up all the freedoms of the West and all that safety in the West to go and live in Israel because they feel, probably rightly, more safe in Israel. There's never been a greater need for a Jewish homeland in Israel. Israel's not going anywhere. No one in the West is saying we're going to wipe Israel off the map. But by giving succour, by giving a victory, by giving a reward to the Hamas terrorists who committed October the 7th, who've said they will commit October 7th massacres every day they can. They would love to do it on October the 8th, 2023, on October the 9th. They would do it today. They would do it tomorrow if they were able to do so. They have made that clear. Cheered on by huge swathes of Palestinian innocent civilians, right? So how on earth any state could say, yes, absolutely, we're happy to live alongside that. I would never agree to my own Prime Minister, my own government here in Britain, agreeing to have a terrorist state on the border that was constantly threatening to kill me and my family. I wouldn't put up with it. You wouldn't put up with it. No one listening or watching would put up with it. But we're saying to people in Israel, you should absolutely put up with it. Otherwise, you're bad people. This is absolutely impossible for any government. Doesn't matter whether it's Netanyahu or, I don't know, the equivalent of Jeremy Corbyn being in the government of Israel. No Israeli government could possibly put up with that. And I'm telling you that what happened yesterday, Canada, Australia, and now France as well, and Britain, going along with some other 100+ countries saying they recognise a Palestinian state, we have just signed our own suicide letter. That's what we've done. Keir Starmer, on our behalf, has signed a suicide letter, not just from Britain, but not just from the West, but from Western civilization. Because we've basically said, by all means, commit a massacre, rape women, kill children, burn families alive in their houses while you laugh about it and film it for social media. Take hostages, torture them, beat them, rape them, parade them in propaganda videos, digging their own graves, keep even their dead bodies, keep babies, strangle babies that you've taken hostage, laugh about it, allow your people to spit on their coffins when you parade them before the International Red Cross, before they're handed over to the IDF. You can do all of that, and here is your reward. You can have the Palestinian state you so crave. And here's the really mad bit. At the same time as Keir Starmer saying Hamas can never be a part of a Palestinian state, he's not a colonial power, last time I looked. I'm pretty sure that as and when, if it does ever happen, I don't think it will, a Palestinian state is created from Gaza and the West Bank, that when they have elections, which they've promised to do, I'll tell you who's going to be elected. It's going to be Hamas. We're going to have a democratically elected terrorist organisation in charge of a country on the border of a democratic ally in the Middle East. And what are we going to do then? What are we going to do then? Well, we're probably going to lay down our arms and write another suicide letter. That is what Keir Starmer has done on our behalf. I think he's brought shame on himself, shame on the British government, and shame on the British people. But he has basically given a death sentence to the West. That's where I stand on this.
But is it any surprise? I mean, it sounds like ancient history now, but never forget that Keir Starmer is a man who served in the shadow cabinet of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yep. Try to get him elected.
Very, very happily. Wouldn't have any truck with people who said, no, we can't vote for the Labour Party at this moment because why? It has a massive anti-Semitism problem. Yep. He gladly
never spoke up about it in cabinet.
Never spoke up about it in shadow cabinet.
Not once.
He gladly supported a man that he now says he always believed was anti-Semitic or had an anti-Semitism problem. And you know why? because he just doesn't care about Jews enough. When push comes to shove...
He's married to a Jewish woman,
when
though.
Push
they
comes,
carry...
but,
That's the thing a lot of people find very confusing.
But, Julia, when push comes to shove, he is prepared to throw the Jewish people of this country...
Under the bus.
Under the bus in order to achieve his political ambitions.
Which is to stay as Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party.
For as long as humanly possible.
This is not about international peace or the children of Gaza or anything else. This is actually about Keir Starmer's personal ambition.
And fight for survival.
And fight for survival within his own party and the left-wingers who are desperate to basically appease any terrorist group in the world. And that's the reality.
And I'm sorry to the Jewish people of this country who are forced to face hate marches down the street, who are forced to face increasing abuse and violence and all the rest of it. Your Prime Minister has just said, stuff you. I don't care about you enough. I'm throwing you under the bus.
Well, no, what he's
I need to
basically
save
said
my
is
own neck.
there's only a few 100,000 of you, but there's a few million. I think it's 6 million, 46 million. I'm not quite sure the figures of Muslims in this country. I don't think you should ever judge people as voting a certain way because of their religious background, but nevertheless, we do see that is a vote that often does vote en masse for one particular cause. We've seen that with the MPs for Gaza, 5 of them elected at the last election, effectively, not worrying about the towns that they represent, but about what's going on in Gaza. I think we are in very, very scary territory where sectarian interests abroad are going to be affecting our national government policy, because I'm old-fashioned. I remember when we used to actually have foreign policy that matched our national self-interest rather than the personal interests or the personal fetishes of certain groups in society. But there we are. Let's also talk about something else going on right now. Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef as well been on stage in London announcing a new policy if Reform get elected, as they're currently on the polls look like they will be, and they're going to abolish indefinite leave to remain for legal migrants. In particular, we are talking about that massive Boris wave. Yep. Some 3.8 million people came during Boris Johnson's time, given legal visas. Yep. Now, the official figures say 1.2 million. That doesn't include all the dependents. I mean, it's extraordinary how often when the numbers we talk about don't actually include the actual number of people turning up. But a huge number of people were given the right to come here, often working in things like care homes, on low wages, being subsidised, and basically all those people in a couple of years will be entitled to apply for indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. Now, the Tories have said under Kemi Badenoch they would turn it to 10 years. I support that, but Reform going one step further, saying, no, we're abolishing it. You don't have indefinite leave to remain. You'll have to apply again every 5 years for your work visa. There's going to be a higher salary threshold, it's about 35k at the moment. You're not a net contributor on 35k. A lot of these people, by the way, are earning less than 25,000. 100% they are not net contributors. And you're going to have much stronger English language skills, show you're contributing to your local community. Now, he said the anticipated cost of the 800,000 plus people who will qualify for leave to remain in the next 3 years, removing a lot of the other people. He said that there will be there would be I think not a cost, I think a benefit of £230 billion. Now, these are figures from the Centre for Policy Studies who've now said, look, actually those figures are being queried. So I think we should leave aside talk of the money. But at the end of the day, he's talking about saying these are people who don't have a right to be here.
The truth is, there are millions of people in this country. There are millions of people in this country that need to go. There are hundreds of thousands of people who broke into this country unlawfully and have no right to be here. The only thing they've got in common is their criminality, and each and every single one of them needs to be deported. There are hundreds of thousands, if not potentially even more, in addition, who are people who have come into this country and are contributing little, if nothing, while putting all of the demands that each of us, any human being, puts on the state. They're demanding schooling for their children, NHS treatment, all the rest of it. And the result is this, that people across this country cannot get a GP appointment, that crime is on the rise, that salaries are being deflated. Now, look, Nigel has come to the right position. Now, I would say this. People will be cross with me. I would say this. I am old enough to remember earlier in the year when Nigel Farage basically got rid of one of his MPs on the back of the fact that he said that mass deportations weren't necessary. Yeah. So Rupert Lowe, I think, has the right this morning to be a little bit cheerier than perhaps Nigel is. And there's a little bit of cheek from Nigel to come out and now call for basically a Rupert Lowe policy after having thrown out an MP for doing so earlier in the year.
Yeah, but that was over different issues, wasn't it?
It was included within that. Nigel said he wasn't happy with mass deportations. We need mass deportations. So Nigel,
I think our priority is people who arrive illegally and criminals. And I think a lot of people, and then when you've got to this in America as well, with ICE turning up, masked men turning up and deporting people. Now, well, yeah, no, exactly. At the end of the day, I don't know why people who arrived in a country illegally and been there illegally for even if it's 10 or 20 years, why you think you've got a right to stay and why you think that the tiers should be coming down. Like, you knew the deal. But here's the thing: there will be that situation, and I can see the BBC reports right now of sort of this lovely family and she helps look after children in the community and he sweeps the roads and what a good people they are, and that's what people are
Julia,
going to say.
They are criminals. If you broke into this country illegally, you are a criminal. And if you are a criminal, I want the police to turn up at your doorstep with precisely whatever equipment they need to effect your removal from the United Kingdom. You have no right to be here. Yep. You stole that place from somebody that was more deserving than you were when you smuggled yourself onto a lorry.
But at the end of the day, we are constantly told, especially when you look at people who've come here legally, and again, one of the issues of illegal migration is often people who've come here on a work visa, legal student visa, or a tourist visa, is that they then overstay. And then because apparently, even though you have to queue up and you have to have all this information about you in the passport system, no one actually bothers to check that people have left the country. Yep. But basically, we're saying that if you come here and you're settled here and you're working, you've got a visa, you've got no access to the welfare state, no free services from the NHS. Now, reforms say this would save well in excess of 230 billion over the lifetime of the average claimant, because they, as you say, they have kids. Obviously, their kids will be able to go to school. But Zia Youssef said half of the Boris wave migrants and their dependents do not work. Well, of course not. Children don't work. And also a huge number of them don't do jobs which were their net contributors anyway. He says, financial disaster for the UK, 800,000 people will become eligible to claim benefits next year from that wave. And this is the thing, we're constantly told economic migration is a boon to this economy. I mean, anyone arguing this, I get complaints when I write this in my Sun column from some Egypts who are saying this isn't true, and they complain to Ipso, they'll complain to Ofcom. It is a simple matter of fact. Even if you're British, if you earn less than about the 45k mark, you're not a net contributor. Even if you do a good job and you work hard. And look, and I'm genuinely, you're a street sweeper, you're a teaching assistant, you're doing a more worthwhile job than me. I know that. In terms of economic contribution, you have to earn over a certain amount to be a net contributor economically. You could be a net contributor in other ways. But if we're told that all these migrants coming legally are net contributors economically to this country, that is an outright lie.
Julia, if mass migration was rocket fuel for economic growth, we would have just lived through the most prosperous time in British history. We didn't. And that is on the basis of what is GDP overall. When you look at GDP per capita, every single one of these low-skilled migrants makes each and every one of us substantially, materially, observably poorer. If you want to know why 10, 15 years ago, you had a BMW on the drive, you got to go on two foreign holidays a year, and you had a nice house, and things felt tough but doable. If you want to know why it is now the case, that BMW is now Honda, that holiday abroad is now a trip down to Cornwall, and things are just tougher. Mass migration is a big part of the reason why you feel poorer.
We're in a ridiculous situation. We're importing people, often low-skilled, low-wage jobs, when we've got 6 million people of working age sitting on their backsides right now doing absolutely sod all, most of whom are perfectly capable of working. And also we have millions more who are, we're told, the working poor. Well, yeah, mum and dad, 2 kids, dad works 2 days a week. Well, I'm sorry, dad needs to work 5 days a week, and mum, unless your kids are, under 1 year old, you need to work full time too. Because you know what? Most working mums, most married mums most mums do actually go out to work. I am fed up of subsidising people to do nothing. I'm genuinely overnight you say, right, okay, These guys are gone. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Go back to where you came from, and when you can get a better job and higher skills, feel free to reapply. And then we say to people in Britain, I would say under 40s, that's it. Benefits, gone. Get a job. Get a job.
But of those 6 million, 1.3 million were not born in this country. We are paying the benefits of 1.3 million people who came to this country, and we were told they would be contributors to our economy. They weren't. The politicians lied.
Absolutely.
And it's about time they did something about it.
Absolutely. I just want to get to the extraordinary memorial for Charlie Kirk last night, overnight, attended by, of course, Donald Trump, senior members of the cabinet in America, and the Vice President, of course, J.D. Vance, good friend of Charlie Kirk, but also, incredible scenes. I mean, tens of thousands of people, a spillover stadium as well, singing hymns. It's very much a turning point, very much a religiously motivated sort of right-wing organisation. Still got, far right and being used by some media organisations about this man. I didn't pay much attention to Charlie Kirk before his horrific murder. I've never seen anything that he said that, I disagree with him on abortion and gun rights, and I'm not religious, but the man was there for discourse. The man was there for conversation. He was respectful of his opponents. He invited people to debate. He defended. He stopped even crowds going, no, listen to this person. We're not being abusive. We're going to listen to someone giving an opposing point of view. And he did that because he knew that he could argue using words, and he didn't use the barrel of a gun. But let's have a listen to what Erica Kirk, his widow, mother of their 2 children. This is as a mum, I thought that your husband at 31 could be shot dead in such a cruel and utterly pointless way. This is what she had to say about his killer, alleged killer, Tyler Robinson.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
She's a better woman than I would be. She's a lot better than I would be. Donald Trump, though, speaking a little bit later on, said something rather different.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
At least he's honest, but extraordinary words from Erica there.
Yeah, and what a witness for the ideas that she and Charlie held all those for all those years and spent their life articulating for. And the one thing I would say is it's at least an advert of why political violence is stupid as well as evil, because Charlie Kirk's words will live on forever now.
Absolutely. I think more powerful now than ever before. I want to hear from you. We'll get to phone lines up next. Hamas has declared victory after Keir Starmer announced Britain would recognise a Palestinian state. What's your reaction to that? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1, standard network rate message. Also love to hear your thoughts on what Nigel Farage has announced this morning about an end to indefinite leave to remain and benefits and council housing for migrants. We're going to take your calls up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Let's get straight to your calls very quickly. Herbie is on the line in Harrow. Herbie, what do you want to say?
Good morning, Julie. Oh, this man and his government are just unbelievable. You know, we've got a government and a Prime Minister that does not believe in the great country of Great Britain. Yeah. Julia, remember back in the 30s when Hitler started to uprise and he managed to take over as the bully that he was and the tyrant that he was, who tried to exterminate the Jews? Isn't this happening again? Is this not going to be happening again? You know, do we never, ever learn by giving in to these type of people?
Apparently not. Apparently not, Herbie. Thank you very much indeed for that. Very succinct point. Judith is on the line, who is in Radlett. Hello, Judith. What do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for taking my call. As I explained to your the researcher, God, words fail me today. I'm devastated. I've been so upset since I heard what he was going to do. This is Starmer.
Yeah.
He's an appalling man. He has no conscience. He can't have any conscience.
Why do you think he's done it?
He's appeasing his vote. The thing is, it's not going to get him anywhere. His voting bloc will vote for their own MPs. Yeah. I mean, he just doesn't get what it's doing to us.
Yeah. You say us, you're Jewish.
How upset I am. I'm Jewish, yes. Yeah. And I'm busy cooking for our Jewish New Year. So I just want to say Shana Tova, Chag Sameach to your listeners and everybody else. We've lived in this country for centuries. We live in peace. You know that.
Yep.
I mean, what's been happening since the 7th of October to my community here, I don't think anyone can imagine the effect it's having on us.
And the normalisation, it barely makes the news, even when we do have anti-Semitic attacks, which have just become normalised. The stuff on social media is absolutely foul and obscene. I feel your pain. I do want you to know, and I'm sure my audience, and we've had a caller earlier pointing out, you know, we're the majority. I promise you, the majority of the British people are absolutely standing, absolutely foursquare behind our Jewish fellow citizens, and will continue to do so. I promise you that. Judith, thank you for that. Look, enjoy the new year and with your family, and you know, count your blessings that you know where we are right now. It's going to get a lot worse, but we're going to fight against it. We really are. 11:34 is the time. We're going to take another break. We're going to be talking to a former IDF staff sergeant and Eitan Fischberger about what is really going on in Gaza and what he makes of that recognition of a Palestinian state. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk more about the impact of that extraordinary decision from the Prime Minister. Long floated, was in their manifesto. I'm not denying any of that, but to basically recognise a Palestinian state, which has been regarded as quite clearly a victory and a reward for Hamas. We know that because they said it themselves. Well, let's talk about this with Eitan Fischberger. He's a writer and also an investigator with open source intelligence and a former IDF staff sergeant who joins us now. Good morning to you, Eitan.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've been following you on social media for quite some time. You're one of the many people trying to debunk a lot of the lies that we are told about what is going on in Gaza. And it's very much what's going on in Gaza and the claims of genocide that we are hearing that are seeming to be used to justify the decision by the British Prime Minister to recognise a Palestinian state. Is that a reasonable, fair and objectively true claim?
Yeah, I would say for sure. I think you can draw a clear line between the quote-unquote genocide accusation with the quote-unquote recognition of a quote-unquote Palestinian state. You know, me and a few other investigators have been tracking the genocide narrative since October 8th, 2023. So not even 24 hours after the horrible Hamas-led October 7th massacre, you already had Palestinian organizations, anti-Israel organizations, politicians saying, oh, you know, Israel's preparing for a genocide. So they're already planting the seeds, you know, way before Israel even entered Gaza.
Yeah. There was a UN motion, I think, within 48 hours condemning the attack by Israel on Gaza within 24 hours of October. Yeah.
Exactly, and you know, and not just the UN. I mean, obviously the UN, but so many other countries. Qatar had a statement, you know, condemning Israel on October 7th. China had a statement condemning Israel on October 7th. And you know, there's this thing called the illusory truth effect, which is just a fancy way of saying that if you repeat a lie enough, it becomes the truth. Yeah. So I think, you know, there are probably multiple reasons that Keir Starmer decided to recognize a Palestinian state. But that's definitely one of the reasons, is just this constant repetition of the lie.
Well, I mean, Keir Starmer has been branded a modern-day appeaser. We know that the Hamas leadership have made it very clear. They've talked about, you know, this being a reward, this justifying what they did on October the 7th. They've called it a victory for them. Is it?
I think quite clearly it is. I mean, you know, they're handing out streets in Gaza. You have, you know, I follow all the Palestinian and Hamas-affiliated Telegram channels and social media accounts, and they are over the moon. And, you know, the thing that Keir Starmer doesn't understand is that, you know, this isn't going to score him any real political points. I know that the vast majority of the British public, you know, opposes this move. But, you know, back to your point, I think that what's really sort of amazing in a kind of ghoulish way is that you can really, you know, you really see the line, you see the thorough line. You know, this recognition, a British recognition of a Palestinian state, was not on the table on October 6, 2023. In other words, it would not have happened if it wasn't for the Hamas-led October 7th massacre. So, you know, you can say, oh, this move is meant to, it's not a reward for Hamas. But like, those are just words. Just because you say it's not a reward for Hamas, exactly.
Yeah, and if they think it is, then it is. And so what lessons are being learned? Because you said you follow all of these, I mean, really quite horrific Telegram accounts. These are the ones that happily live streamed the massacres, the brutal, beheadings and burnings and rapes and the horrific treatment of people in Israel on October the 7th, and indeed the taking of the hostages. I mean, we know a lot of stuff happened because Hamas filmed it, despite many people still denying that a lot of this stuff happened. But there's also been a clip, and I saw you put this out yesterday, of Hamas carrying out summary executions. And I've got to we can't play, for obvious reasons in the Western media, the full video, but I've tweeted it out because I think people shouldn't look away. 3 men kneeling down, blindfolded. They're accused, I think, of being collaborators with Israel. Who knows what their actual supposed crime was. Big crowds, children in the crowd, and Hamas operatives, you know, quite clearly shoot them in the back, continue to shoot their bodies and execute them, and then everyone cheers and spits on their bodies. This is justice, Hamas Palestinian state style. Yeah,
I mean, this is you know, the what was most traumatizing for me from this video, apart from the horrific scenes itself, was the cheering of the audience. And, Hamas still maintains popularity in the West Bank and in Gaza. And I guarantee you, you can, everyone mark my words now, in a few months when we get the updated, Palestinian Bureau of Statistics poll about Hamas's approval ratings, I guarantee you there will be an increase from yesterday in 3 months from now, because they got what they wanted. Right, so of course people
they've delivered. They've delivered. Fatah and the Palestinian Authority haven't got this recognition from, crucial members of the United Nations Security Council. That's the key bit, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And thank God, we have people, in the media like you and people in the U.S. and Israel and the British public, of course. I heard some of your calls earlier that are willing to stand up and speak truth to power and say this is not acceptable. This is not how we do things here in the West. This is not how we do things here in the UK. And the UN Security Council can say what it wants to say. The UNGA can say what it wants to say. But like I said before, just because you say things and put words on paper doesn't make it reality.
Well, this is it. This won't create a Palestinian state. There is no agreed border. That's something that the Palestinian leadership have repeatedly refused to agree to when offered Palestinian states by the United Nations, by every other body, agreed to by Israel on 4 separate occasions. There is no agreed leadership, but very likely that the leadership reason why there's not elections in the West Bank for 20 years, same as in Gaza, is because we know who's going to get elected there. It would be Hamas. We don't know any of those things, but we also have a situation where the leadership of both current leaderships of those separate the strips of land are committed to the destruction of Israel. What do you think happens next?
So first of all, I'm happy that you addressed, just to sidetrack one moment, I'm happy that you addressed the fact that the Palestinian Authority is, more moderate than Hamas, but that's first of all a very low bar. But they're paying the salaries for terrorists who kill Jews and Israelis and their families. So there's literally a ministry that does that. It's not hidden. They're open about it. There absolutely is. But in terms of what happens now, it's sort of hard to say because it's sort of unclear how far Keir Starmer and Macron are going to take this illusion, this Palestinian state that they invented out of thin air. Theoretically, there's a possibility that this could open up the potentiality for Palestinians to buy arms from countries. Right now, they're like a legitimate state, quote unquote, and so they can buy arms and armaments. If they somehow manage to control their borders or get borders, then they can theoretically import thousands upon thousands of jihadists from all around Africa and the Middle East. It's really, really hard to say what's going to happen. But I guess, we'll see in the coming weeks and months.
Well, as someone who's served in the IDF, you'll know far better than many what war is like. I have no experience of this. I was in Israel very recently. I was within a kilometre of the border with Gaza. You could hear and see missile attacks and shell attacks. Asking our own armed guard what weapon would be used then, who would be firing that, and it's very scary. And that's just from someone standing somewhere safe watching it. How accurate is the picture that we are seeing of what's on the ground in Gaza in the West? You say you follow all these Palestinian channels on Telegram and the like. How accurate is the picture that we're seeing?
It is almost completely inaccurate. It's so inaccurate that it's almost the inverse of reality. You have the IDF going door to door, meticulously taking out terrorist infrastructure and taking out terrorists, putting themselves on the line. It would be so much easier for the IDF to just decimate Hamas, but there would be a lot more civilian casualties. And so Israel, and I know soldiers, I know IDF soldiers, veterans who have been injured and worse because of the meticulous, extremely careful way that Israel is fighting. But, before I mentioned the propaganda and the illusory truth effect, and repeat a lie enough it becomes the truth. So, Palestinian media is not free. It's not like talkTV. It's not like you, Julia. It's all dictated by Hamas and by the, other terrorist organizations. They have very clear instructions of what you can and can't cover. Things are set up in advance to look like Israel did something terrible when in fact it's, again, completely fabricated. I myself and researchers far more talented than me have uncovered with proof, irrefutable evidence. The fact that there are journalists, dozens, if not hundreds of journalists in the Gaza Strip that are actually members of terror groups. I'm talking proof of them. I mean, of course, cheering on October 7th and saying, we love Hamas,
on
we
their
love
public
Yahya Sinwar.
social media accounts.
Yeah, but I'm saying in uniform. They're literally in uniform.
Some were even in Israel on October the 7th.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I would be very hesitant, and I would advise your audience to be very hesitant to believe that.
But here's the thing. So it's one thing, the British public, and I say to people, I say, if you're on the wrong side of this debate, my guess is you've just been watching or listening to the BBC too much, and you'll see social media, which is absolutely pushing this agenda. But you know what? Our Prime Minister, our Foreign Secretary, our Deputy Prime Minister, who was Foreign Secretary, you'd like to think, that they must know better than this. They must have advisors in their Foreign Office. They must have military advice about what is really going on. They must understand that the as far as we know on the death figures we have seen, that the ratio of combatant to non-combatant deaths is for want of a word, the best it's ever been. We've never achieved in British fighting history such a low proportion of civilian deaths. Every death is a tragedy, I accept that, but nevertheless, a low proportion of civilian deaths compared to any war we've fought. Why do they not tell us the truth?
It's really hard to impugn a motive there. I would like to think that they're not so cynical that they would just do it to score political points with their base or whoever they think that their base is, or to please whatever allies in the Middle East they have. I know that
there's no votes in facts, is what you're saying.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good one. But I know politicians are cynical, but I'm genuinely struggling to find any sort of justification for why they would do something like this. And again, especially now, especially so coordinated with so many other states, it almost feels like some sort of, it feels like it's been planned for months and years in the making. Now they're just deciding to unleash it now, just 2 weeks before the anniversary of October 7th.
Absolutely. Really good to speak to you. I hope you'll come back on the show. Aitan Fischberger, who's a writer, open source intelligence investigator, former IDF Staff Sergeant too. Thank you so much for that. Quick response from Sam Armstrong.
I am less remiss to be cynical about why Keir Starmer is acting in the way he is. David Lammy himself says it's not going to help achieve peace. It's not going to do anything.
We'll do it anyway.
They're doing it anyway. We know that Keir Starmer's leadership is in turmoil, who's in real threat of being deposed by his own party, and this is a massive sop to them.
It's so cynical, isn't it? It really is. 11:49 is the time. Up next, we're going to be talking about the announcement we've just heard from Nigel Farage about how he is going to tackle legal migrants and what they're entitled to in this country. The answer is going to be not very much. Mass deportations of legal migrants too. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 11:53 is the time. Well, are we hearing a lot of common sense from Nigel Farage this morning and Zia Youssef, of course, of Reform UK? They've had a press conference this morning which they've announced a major change to migration policy. Remember that Boris wave? 1.2 million arrivals in just 1 year. Well, in total, 3.8 million arriving. And in the next year, 800,000 of those, lots of numbers there, but 800,000 of those would be entitled to apply for indefinite leave to remain. Now, the Tories have said they want you to wait a full 10 years to be able to apply for indefinite leave to remain, but of course they won't be in power in the next few years. Nigel Farage has said, no, we're going to get rid of indefinite leave to remain entirely, and we're going to raise the threshold, the salary that you have to earn and your English language skills, and frankly, if you ain't earning enough every 5 years, we're going to ask you to leave. Well, let's talk about all this with Robert Bates. He's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. A very good morning to you, Robert.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks so much for this. What do you make of what he's had to say so far?
I think what has been set out today is an extremely encouraging development in the debate. Indefinite leave to remain is a ridiculous situation. It was a legal status created in the 1980s when we had much, much smaller levels of inward migration than we have seen in recent years.
Yeah, but a few tens of thousands max a year, yeah.
And occasionally net negative as well, so more people leaving than were coming in. So it was a situation of a bygone era that we are no longer in. And when you look at the fact that we've already got over 1 million foreign nationals, people that aren't even citizens of our country, claiming universal credit costing us billions every year, and you look at what we've got coming down the pipeline, we've got, you know, the millions that entered under the Boris Johnson wave, who will soon be claiming as well the 800,000. As you said, it's very important that we address this ticking time bomb as quickly as possible, and we don't just take it out of the reach of those that have arrived in recent years, but we also look to review some of those cases that have received it in recent years as well.
Well, I wonder how difficult that's going to be legally. I mean, it's one thing saying, you know, in the next few years you can't do it, and I wonder where Labour are going to be on this one, because again, this is a massive cost. You're talking about a lot of people who've come over. They're not all multi-millionaires. They're not all entrepreneurs. They're not all top-skilled people earning high-flight wages. A lot of those people would have been people initially on a care visa because it was an easy way of getting in, and even if they're working as a carer, they're earning well below the threshold currently of being a net contributor, and those people almost immediately become able to claim benefits, credits and housing benefit and all the rest of it, and getting free NHS care and all of that. And the reality is these people are economically a drain on our society.
That's absolutely right. And when you look at last year alone, the last 12 months, just 7% of those that came in to the UK on any sort of non-transit visa type were actually earning at the UK median salary or above. So we have even those that are coming to work, which again is a smaller percentage of the overall cohort arriving. Many of them are coming into low-skilled, low-wage jobs. They're pricing, of course, Brits out of the market as well, because Brits have compete with unscrupulous employers that are happy to pay low-wage labour right at the bottom of the...
And they're allowed, employers are allowed to pay lower wages for a lot of these people than they would have to pay a Brit, extraordinarily.
Yes, absolutely. The temporary occupation list as well is something that is a ridiculous state of affairs that has made it really very easy for employers to put off any of the necessary investment that we actually need to see in the economy as a whole. We've got really stagnant productivity growth in this country, and a large part of that is because employers have just been able to pull that lever and access labour from outside the European Union very, very cheaply. And as a result, we've got situations where millions of Brits are economically inactive or unemployed as well. So this is something that really can't go on. I really think the proposals here, scrapping indefinite leave to remain, is an absolute essential.
It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people are voting. I think they weren't really aware of this, and certainly not on the scale on which people are allowed to come to this country, and then they basically get a right to stay here forever. They could give up their job the next day, and then we're paying for them.
Yeah, and I don't really think, 5 years, they often say, basically, indefinite leave to remain is a status given to sort of make life easier for the migrant rather than to improve the lot of the British public. It's effectively us saying thank you for all the hard work that you've put in over the last 5 years and all the money that you've paid into the economy. But that clearly isn't the case in a very, very large percentage of individuals that have arrived in recent years. So I think what this measure really is about restoring some kind of justice as to how the benefit system works for Brits, how the housing system works for Brits, how the job market works for Brits as well. So this is definitely a step in the right direction.
He's going to come up against the law. He's also going to come up against certainly big business who've been reliant for far too many years on cheap imported labour. And they're probably going to have to pay higher wages. But this is going to have to come hand in hand with saying to the many millions of people who are of working age who are not working and who could be working or claiming they're depressed on a Monday morning that I'm sorry, you have got to go and get a job.
Well, and that is actually really a side product of this sort of fascination we have had with propping our market up with low-skilled wages, that we've not actually invested in the British workforce. We've not tried to incentivise them. We've really been very happy for many people just to sit idle. And I think it's a really sad state of affairs because, you know, if you change the incentive structure, then actually many people that are currently in that situation of just sitting around saying, oh, I'm too tired to work today, or whatever it might be, will actually have to getting them work and actually help build a modern economy for Britain going forward.
Yeah, here's the thing though, I wonder, Robert Bates, whether actually they're going to face a lot of human rights lawyers challenging this. I'm sure they will.
Oh, almost definitely. You can already see sort of people licking their quill and starting to write out sort of proposals for when this goes into place. But this is what has to be done. This is the kind of battle that has to be fought. We have to really take on the entrenched interests that have been
absolutely. And here's the thing: people are having to reapply. That's the thing. So if these people are, as we've been told by the left and by the Ramonas and everyone else all these years, if they are net contributors, it won't be an issue, will it? It's only if actually what they've been telling us for all these years is a lie that it will be. But there we are, Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Thank you very much. We're going to talk to Layla Cunningham from Reform UK about all of this up next. Keep your calls coming in. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You
it's crap. It's crap. That's what he's been.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past midday is the time. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. As I keep saying, someone has got to be. Don't forget, if you do miss anything on the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. And of course, whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, it's always great to have your company. Always great also when you get in touch on the phone lines. I'll give you the numbers in just a moment, but we're going to be talking more, of course, about Hamas declaring victory for the justice of our cause, they say, after Keir Starmer announced yesterday Britain would recognise Palestinian statehood. We'll be talking more about that, especially after, as I say, Hamas has declared victory. Not a victory for Hamas, the Prime Minister says, but if Hamas thinks it is, isn't it? Plus, going to be talking, and in just next few moments, about Nigel Farage pledging to eject hundreds of thousands of legal migrants in an unprecedented reversal of Britain's relaxed border rules. If Reform wins the next election, they will basically force all migrants with permanent residency under indefinite leave to remain to reapply for their visas under strict criteria, higher wages, English language skills and the like, and prevent certainly the Boris wave that's coming up to be able to apply in the next few years from being able to get that and then getting the right to stay in this country, access to free NHS, benefits, council housing and the like. Love to know your thoughts on that. Would you welcome that or not? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. Want to hear more of your calls? Goodness me, so many calls coming in about Keir Starmer recognising Palestinian statehood. Don't forget that later in this hour we are going to be talking to Eli David. He's the brother of the hostage Evertard David. Now, you might not know all the names of all the hostages. He's one of the 20 but still believed to be alive among the 48 still being held by Hamas in Gaza tunnels. He is, though, the man who was forced, emaciated, stick-thin, horrifically starved and beaten to dig his own grave in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza as part of a propaganda video put out by Hamas to taunt his family and indeed the Israeli people. We're going to be talking to his brother, find out what he makes of the decision of the Prime Minister to recognise a Palestinian state. You do not want to miss that. Also, we're going to be talking about Prince Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. She's in the news because just weeks after publicly claiming she'd cut all ties with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein in 2011, those leaked emails have shown that actually she wrote to him, calling him a steadfast, generous and supreme friend. That family. We're also going to be talking about Erica Kirk fighting back tears at a memorial for her late husband, Charlie Kirk, as she forgave his suspected assassin in a heartbreaking moment. We'll talk about that as well. Plenty more coming up. Sam Armstrong is still with me as well. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Going to be talking in just a moment to a Reform representative about what Nigel Farage has had to say. There's no doubt at all. I mean, look, these are two particularly huge stories. The British recognition of a Palestinian state and the implications that has back here in Britain for our own safety, for Western civilization. You and I have discussed this at great length. And of course, for how many of our Jewish audience are calling up absolutely devastated about this and the message it sends out to Hamas, who've been very clear that they wish the death of Israel, they want to destroy Israel and every Jew, but also, by the way, non-Jews too. We're all in the firing line eventually. I call this as, basically a suicide note for the West and for our country. But at the same time, I think we can also agree a suicide note that's being written by various prime ministers of the last few years in terms of our culture and our country and our social cohesion and indeed our economy by basically opening our doors to, let's face it, the third world. Come on in, the water's lovely, and then telling us all that these economic migrants are a massive boon to our country, that they are helping our country and we are richer as a result of it, when the facts simply do not pan out like that. That actually these people are costing us a fortune, low wage, low skilled labour that hasn't benefited our country. And as you were pointing out earlier, if it did, we might have seen some growth over the last 20 years, given the number of people we've come in. What do you make of Nigel Farage saying basically he wants to not just put a stop to it henceforth, but say all the people who've come in recent years and indeed over the last, goodness knows, 20 years, you no longer are going to have the right to just stay here no matter what?
Well, two things. Firstly, I do think Nigel has changed his mind on this. I think he was basically opposed to this kind of process, certainly back in the day, but even at the beginning of this year when he kicked out Rupert Lowe, in part over a scrap over this policy, over whether or not we should see mass deportations. We obviously absolutely need to send millions of people back to where they came from. That is the reality of the damage that has been done to our country by mass migration. But I think this is a fantastic policy, because I do think huge damage has been done, and I'd kind of just resolved myself to just say, oh, we're going to stop the damage in future. But do you know what? No, you're right, Nigel. Actually, what we need to do is we need to undo the great damage that's been done to this country by successive politicians of every stripe. And as I say, at times, Reform, Brexit Party, UKIP politicians were kind of welcoming these policies at the time, skills-based migration system, etc. We do need to undo that damage because our country deserves the system that it voted for in the first place.
Yeah, this is the thing. We've had election after election after election. 2010 onwards, no one was ever asked before what Tony Blair opened the doors to the whole of the European Union and the Eastern countries, and then to everyone else as well. Certainly, election 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019, clear instructions given to every single government about what the numbers that we wanted to have in, and every single time ignored, every single time, and in fact put on rocket boosters by Boris Johnson, who is an absolute travesty in terms of the legacy he left. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Do keep those calls coming in, though, about the recognition of a Palestinian state. So many strong guests on that. The next half hour or so, we're going to be talking to the brother of the hostage forced to dig his own grave by Hamas for a propaganda video. Bet you can't guess where he stands on this, eh? But there we are. Let's talk to our next guest now. Layla Cunningham is a Reform UK councillor, and also she co-leads Reform's Law and Order campaign. A very good afternoon to you, Layla.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining us again. Have to say, quite excited about this reform policy. This goes much further than any reform policy before, certainly much farther than the Tories. Just to lay it out, it's very, very clear. Basically, an end to indefinite leave to remain in this country. People who've been here for many years being asked to reapply, to show their earnings, their English language skills and the like, raising the threshold up from the current £35,000, on which you are absolutely categorically economically not a net contributor, as a Brit on that salary would not be in terms of the Treasury coffers and what we get out in public services, but also ending the right of non-Brits to claim benefits and even have access to council housing. This is a big, radical, even revolutionary step, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. You earn your rights. You don't arrive and just claim them, which is what's happening now. Like you said, people voted continuously, successively for lower migration. The Tories promised to get it down to the tens of thousands, and the worst year, as Nigel said, it was about 1 million, if that's not underestimation. It's not a betrayal, it's like a slap in the face. No one voted for that. The Boris Road brought in 3.8 million new long-term migrants. 96%, I think, were non-EU.
Yeah.
We voted for Brexit for a reason. And not only did they betray Brexit by not seeing it through at all, but then they brought in 3.8 million people to replace the ones.
It is extraordinary. The message was so clear to the Conservatives in 2019. And again, I didn't vote for Brexit because of about giving a specific number of migrants. The whole point was we would have control. We would have control of it. We would get to choose. Would people be a benefit to us or used to? I mean, you try and get into sort of America, legally. You try and get into countries like Australia. They want to know, what are your skills? Are you of good health? Are you what's your earning potential? Are you someone that our country needs? Why on earth would we operate any other kind of policy?
I mean, you've got to ask yourself why. And Nigel was clear, though, in the press conference. This is about the 800,000 that are on track to get indefinite leave to remain by 2030. And let's face it, half of those will not work. Many will bring untold dependents, and every single one of those will have full access to our welfare system for life. And it really is insulting, Julia, when people are working so hard and all we hear about are taxes going up. Public services are the worst they've ever been. There's no control border, there's no police, and we're always told there's not enough money.
Yeah, well, indeed, but we're told, have we not been, for quite a long time, that actually our economy and our health service have been held up by migrants, but in fact, again, those stats don't add up either. Let's play a little clip of your leader, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, talking about abolishing indefinite leave to remain.
We will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country. The 800,000 people that will get indefinite leave to remain unless this policy is revoked tend to be young, tend to be low-skilled, They are going to be a huge burden on the state. What we do know is that 1 in 6 claimants of universal credit alone today, 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
I have to say, Leila Cunningham, that stat is quite extraordinary, isn't it? If we're being told that people coming to this country are economic benefit, why on earth would they be claiming universal credit? Now, you could be in work on universal credit, but you're certainly on low wages if you're claiming universal credit.
I mean, that's $9 billion a year going to people who are foreign and won't contribute enough to pay that back. And we know that recent migrants do earn significantly less than British workers, and many of their dependents don't work at all. And that economic model is broken. We've got younger, poorer, larger families coming in. And as we know, it's the British taxpayer footing the bill. We all work so much harder and get so much less and pay so much more. And that's just got to stop. You can't. I can't imagine any government or any party would disagree with it.
Well, this is the thing. No, they will. You'll have Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and others. They'll be saying, well, are they saying the numbers don't add up? He's talked about the huge saving £234 billion over the lifetime of the average migrant. Because of course, if you're here and you're entitled to benefits, you're going to get your pension, you're going to get your NHS care in your old age, and all and care homes and all of that entitlement. But of course, these figures were from the CPS. The CPS say actually they're readjusting their figures. The OBR, it's a think tank, the OBR are looking at them again. But we know, whatever those figures are, take a few tens of billions out, we are talking about a huge drain on public resources from people who are supposed to be allowed to come to this country as a net benefit to us rather than to them. That is the point of immigration, if you run a country, is that people should be a benefit to your country.
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, we have relied on foreign cheap labour for just too long. We're the least automated country in the G7 as well. We've failed to invest in skills and technology, and it's been a disaster for our young people. We've got, I don't know how many million people out of work that could work, and we have to redress it. We can't just ignore it and just keep asking the taxpayer to pay more and more and get less and less.
Well, we know we can't do that on the basis that, of course, the numbers don't add up anymore. We've got the budget coming up in November, which is going to see, I don't think anyone's thinking we're not going to be seeing tax rises. And most of the experts on these things saying, look, there's there aren't enough wealthy people or businesses to tax. We're going to be, all of us are going to see our own taxes go up. And of course, enter that downward spiral of higher taxes, lower output, and we all get poorer as a result. Here's the thing, though. I mean, reform. I mean, I know Nigel Farage said at your party conference you should be looking to prepare for government in as early as 2027, thinking, this is Keir Starmer can't survive. Could we see a collapse of the Labour Party, as we've seen the collapse of the Tory Party? Could there be an election sooner? But realistically, even if your party can get elected, do you think your party will be able to actually achieve any of this? Because you're going to be up, whether it's on getting rid of deporting illegal migrants, dealing with the benefits and the like for legal migrants, you are going to be up against a whole massive blob. I mean, we are talking about, they're not just the human rights lawyers, the civil servants, large parts of the media, the BBC. You're going to be looking at, academia. Everything is going to be against reform doing this.
All those people you've mentioned are already against us, Julia, and we're still polling so high. Sometimes we're polling more than Conservatives and Labour put together. Yeah, it will be hard, but it doesn't mean it's impossible, because we've never had the political will. We've never had a leader who's willing to do this. And frankly, we will have a democratic mandate. And I dare anyone, any blob or any journalist to go against a democratic mandate, because that would mean they're undermining democracy. And that would be a big problem for our country.
And that would be a key thing, isn't it? Well, we've seen plenty of parties, Labour, the Liberal Democrats, large swathes of the Conservative Party, quite happy to undermine democracy in the years between 2016 and 2019, quite happily and openly doing it. And we've got a Liberal Democrat Party that's neither Liberal nor Democrat, as we now know. They've been very clear about that. But we are talking about, okay, if there was a manifesto commitment to do this and a majority, the House of Lords constitutionally would not be entitled to overthrow it and stop it. But we are talking about many other different ways, as we've seen with every policy that the Tories have tried to move on these in this sort of area. There are ways of stopping this from happening.
Well, the House of Lords can delay it, of course, but we're going to have to get some peers in. And Parliament is sovereign, and we will pass what legislation is necessary to see this through. And I think the majority of the public will be behind us, because nobody wants to pay so much taxes for people who've just arrived. And look, it's not about race or nationality, it's about rights and responsibility.
But you know that's what people are going to say. You know that's what the left is going to say.
Of course.
This is bigotry.
They say that for everything. It all comes down to race. They call us far right for wanting to prioritise British people. But the public owes nothing to someone who arrived 5 years ago and hasn't contributed. I'm sorry, we just don't. No. People follow the rules, they pay their taxes, they work hard, they take care of their family. And for once, those people are going to be prioritised by the government and put at the front of the queue.
Well, I can hear a lot of my audience nodding away and clapping there. Layla Cunningham, Reform UK councillor, co-leader of Reform UK's Law and Order campaign. Thank you for that. Sam Armstrong, this is the thing. Like, I've lived in a few other countries. I've been on legal visas, I'd like to point out. But it was always very clear to me, none of those countries owed me anything. I didn't expect a translator service if I was, needed healthcare. I certainly thought, I should pay tax and that I should be there legally. And that if they didn't want me there, they had absolutely every right to send me packing, because I have no right to do that. The problem is we're up against a kind of a left blob, or sort of, they think they're the centrist dads. They're not. They're extreme left, who don't believe in borders. They genuinely don't believe. They think, every person can live wherever they want. They have no understanding of this. But this policy, I mean, it sounds like it's revolutionary and radical. This is kind of how everyone was until Tony Blair got into power. This would have been the norm for every country.
Yeah, and of course the government claims that its policy is everyone who enters the country illegally is going to get deported. I saw a Labour MP just laughably tweeting that out over the weekend. The reality is very different though. And if you go to, say, somewhere in the Arab world, for example, to the UAE or Saudi Arabia, very successful countries, it is very clear to you as someone that is an immigrant there that you are there as a guest. The status is not permanent. You're not going to remain there indefinitely. You're there to do whatever you're doing as a guest.
When they don't want you anymore,
you're going back home. Whereas in the UK, people arrive here and immediately the usual suspects say they have rights. Well, they don't have rights. When I go into your house, you've had me over before to a party.
I don't know why I did that.
Well, you were nice at the time, but I won't be coming back. But look,
you will.
When I go to your house, I don't expect that I have the right. I don't have the right to help myself to what's in your fridge and say, actually, I don't like what you've put out for me, so I'm just going to rummage around and pick out what I want. I don't have the right to move in and stay there. I am there as a guest, and when I'm a guest, I am there at your discretion.
When I ask you to leave,
when you ask me to leave, which you did, I think. Sorry again about that. When you ask me to leave, I leave. That is the ordinary way that human beings have operated for millennia.
It's just not complicated.
The entire culture of human, as I say, just basic, ordinary, what it means to be a human has been inverted by the Rights Brigade. It needs to stop.
Absolutely.
Simple as.
Again, it just these are none of these are the things that we would expect. And what's so funny is exactly the same. You get the Ramonas who go on about the EU. So okay, you can only have a 6-month visa to be in the EU now. I've got family members who own property in France and want to go and spend their time there.
Tiny violin.
I know. I mean, I've got to be honest. I'm not. Are you supporting Brexit? I say, sod off, live with it. I've got no. I mean, if you're listening or watching now, I've got no sympathy. But the thing is, so the Remainers will go, oh well, but the EU has a right to decide who comes in and out. Yes, they do, and so do we, and that was the deal. I just find it extraordinary. Here's some breaking news for you. The Palestinian flag has been raised at a ceremony in London marking a new embassy in the UK at the site of the Palestinian mission. The head of the mission, Hussam Zomra, I think is now calling himself ambassador. He made remarks, he spoke at the event, and he said them standing next to the UK's Minister for the Middle East, Hamish Falconer. Just want to cry.
I mean, they might as well
just want to cry.
They might as well hoist them up down the mouth, because presumably now that we have relations with them, that we're going to give them a state visit. Are we going to have some recently retired Hamas commander riding down the mouth in a carriage with the king? I mean, honestly, the inmates are running the asylum.
We're going to go to break because I can't think of words that won't get me taken off air. I genuinely can't think. Beep, 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 beep. 12:22 is the time. We'll take your calls up next. This is Talk.
So Mark Rowley, in response to the public furore over the arrest of Graham Linehan by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow, again, just for social media posts a few weeks ago, he said that the reason the police were overreacting in
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for your company. At 12:25 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. We are the home of common sense. We are the home of two people in the studio. Sam Armstrong is still with me. I'm trying to make sure that we don't swear on air about, you know, the recognition of a Palestinian state and, of course, the just the madness of the Palestinians raising their flag at their now embassy. There isn't a Palestinian state. We recognised it anyway, basically as a reward for October the 7th. Not a reward, we're told by the Prime Minister and David Lammy and Yvette Cooper and everyone else involved, but it is a reward for Hamas terrorists and what they did on October the 7th. You know it, I know it, and they know it too. But this is all about, let's face it, shoring up the Prime Minister as he's got catastrophically low poll ratings among the country at large, but also facing possible leadership challenge within his own party and outside as well, with Jeremy Corbyn and Zoe Sultana and their brand new Your Party, you know, Jezbollah or whatever they're going to be called this week. This is the most cynical, immoral act I think our government has committed in quite some time, and hope you're proud of yourself, Keir Starmer, because I certainly am not proud of you. Let's go to your phone calls. 0344 499 1000 on that. Lots of people getting in touch. Chris is in Oxfordshire. Chris, hello, what do you want to say?
Hello, Julia. You're my favourite talk host. I've never called you before.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, why not?
I don't know.
Busy, got a job, got a life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling. Oh, what do you want to say, my darling?
So, all through this run-up to the recognition of so-called Palestine...
we should always call it that, shouldn't we?
Yeah. But the conditions have been on Israel, right? You know, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, or we're going to recognise Palestine as a state. So where was the conditions on Hamas to release the hostages?
And they had the 4 conditions on Israel: agree to ceasefire, let more aid in. But then they would say, well, why are there no conditions on Hamas? They would say, oh no, but we insist that Hamas release the hostage. But as we now know for sure, it was not a requirement of recognition.
No.
And in fact, Hamas walked away from the ceasefire negotiations within a couple of days of everyone knowing this was going to happen.
And they don't want their own state. They've rejected so many opportunities.
They want Israel's.
Yeah. He's just a prat.
I do try and tell people off not to do named calling, but that's quite a good description. Do you know, but here's the thing. Keir Starmer's not a stupid man. He seems to be, he's an empty vessel. We know that. But and he does a lot of stupid things, which make you wonder, like, how are you ever director of public prosecutions and a top lawyer? I mean, how? But he must.
I don't know.
No, he must know what the implications of this are and how it would be seen, and certainly by Jewish citizens.
Maybe he takes hallucinogenics or something. I don't know.
I mean, do you know what though? It's a better explanation than him thinking it forwards our national interest, that's for sure. Chris, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Carl is on the line in Liverpool. Hello, Carl. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon, Julia.
Good afternoon.
It's about our lovely Prime Minister recognised Palestine as a state. No one asked us. No one asked the British people, but you can go on television and say that the UK will now recognise Palestine.
He's a democratically elected Prime Minister. He can do that.
Well, he's a democratically elected idiot. I don't know where we go from here with this. I mean, if reform get in, can it be undone?
Oh, yeah.
It can. Well, that's fine. But I think this man needs to go now, Julia, because he's waited for Donald Trump to go. We knew he was going to wait. Even that reporter pulled him on it, and he's done this. Now he's got to go. I think there's something in America happening in the next weeks or months, and they're all going to be there. Why can't a politician and the leader of our country just stand up and go, no, we're not going to do that because they're run by terrorists? We all know this.
Yeah.
It's out in the open. Yeah, for some reason, we have a man that is blind, deaf and dumb in charge of this country.
Yeah. And he says, but he says categorically, Hamas can never be involved in the running of a Palestinian state. Hamas run half of the land that they would be involved in that, and the other organisation, Fatah, they're not much better. They're paying terrorists.
Well, they'll get wiped out if they call
but also if there were elections, they would insist there were democratic elections. Why would we recognise a state that was an autocratic regime if we didn't have to? So if they have democratic elections, Hamas gets elected. We've then got a terrorist group elected in a state, going to the UN, having an embassy here and threatening Israel. I mean, it's properly mad.
It is, Julia. I think, our country itself is already in testing times, and yet this guy just thinks it's how he puts things together, Julia. It's how his whole cabinet puts things together and how they portray them to the British people. He said that yesterday or today, like it was something that we should all jump on a board and be like, yes, clap our hands and let's celebrate. No, Mr. Prime Minister, you need to leave. We need to sort our country out and the people of it. Please go and take your party with you. And if you love Palestine and Hamas so much, like all these...
Off you go. Yeah, off you go. Go and live there. It sounds like a lovely place. Carl, thank you for that. Lottie is on the line. Lottie is in Lancashire. Lottie, you want to talk about Nigel Farage and what Reform UK have announced today about ending indefinite leave to remain for migrants?
Yes, I do. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for calling.
No problem. I'd go one step further. I would say anybody that with dual citizenship in this country, if you've not worked for 10 years, back home. Go back home.
So that will be someone who's basically they're a foreign national. They've arrived here and they've got dual citizenship, British, but basically you're not welcome here if you're not working.
We have millions of women in this country that have never worked, that can't even speak English.
Particularly from the Indian subcontinent, actually, particularly from Pakistan and Bangladesh, particularly issues, I think.
So you know something, if you're not bringing anything to the country, why should I have to pay for you? Why should you?
Well, I mean, I'd say, if you have a family unit and daddies were earning so much that he can afford to pay for all of you, and he's paying enough tax to be a net contributor, that's fine. But I don't think that is the case.
We know that's not the case.
Yeah, we know
the fathers are not working, the sons are not working, the mothers are not working, and then we're paying for the grandmothers, the kids, the aunties, the uncles. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it is utterly ridiculous. I mean, I know there are very, very different employment rates for many different nationalities. Obviously, there'll be huge swathes of people who do work and who are making a contribution. But the reality is, I'm just not entirely sure why we've got so many people unemployed from already here. By the way, of every creed and colour, why we need to import new people to do low-skilled, low-wage work. By definition, that work can be done by people who are currently unemployed, by definition, because if you don't need a qualification to do it, then we'll just take people off the benefits. And people say, well, people won't work. Well, they will when they're hungry enough.
I was talking to my daughter this morning about this, and I said, if that was to happen, just imagine how much revenue we would have in this country. I said, and you know something?
The housing availability as well.
My daughter would be able to go for her operation that she's been waiting for years.
Absolutely. No, again, it seems to me, I'm wondering if they'll be able to do it, and certainly the scale they can do it on, but absolutely behind the principle and the aim. Lottie, thank you for that. Appreciate that. I say on another day, instead of the Palestinian recognition of God, what am I saying? The British recognition of Palestinian state, getting it completely wrong way around there. This would be absolutely the lead story today, but let's face it, although this is a story about British politics, there's no doubt at all that what our Prime Minister does on the world stage also has massive implications for our country and indeed the safety of many of our citizens as well. I'm going to take a quick break right now, and then we are going to be talking about the latest royal woes, because there always are some on a Monday morning, aren't there? We'll talk about that up next with Rupert Bell. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 12:36 is the time. Well, let's talk about the royals. I know, I try not to do that too often, but they played a very big role last week in that state visit from Donald Trump. And, you know, rolling out the red carpet, the state banquets and all the meeting and greeting. And that's exactly what we have a royal family for, to further our soft interest on the world stage. And they certainly did that. But some of the royals just continue to be a problem. Well, one in particular, of course, has been Prince Andrew. Well, maybe out of the royal fold in terms of public duties, but he is nevertheless the brother of the king and the uncle of the future king. But Prince Andrew never out of the news. And neither often is his ex-wife, the Duchess of York, who's still a very close friend, lives in the same house as him. And Sarah, Duchess of York, has been in the news again over this weekend, as it turns out that after she, like Prince Andrew, insisted that she had absolutely ended all contact with Jeffrey Epstein, having been close friends with him along with her then husband over the many years. In 2011, she publicly stated, no, absolutely, she would have no contact with Jeffrey Epstein again. This was 2 years after he had been convicted of procuring an underage girl for prostitution. Pretty clear, disgusting crime. And yet these leaked emails have emerged, which showed that straight after that, a few weeks later, she wrote to Jeffrey Epstein to call him a steadfast, generous and supreme friend. Well, let's talk about this with Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent. Good afternoon to you, Rupert.
Good morning from New York.
Oh, good morning to you. That's very interesting. Oh, you're at the UN General Assembly recognising a Palestinian state as well?
No, I'm going to be recognising European golfers beat US next week in front of Donald Trump.
Come on, there we are. Fingers crossed for that. Rupert, and I'll be forced to watch it. Rupert, I mean, the Duchess of York has put her foot in it many times, her toes being sucked in it over the years, along with Prince Andrew. What on earth was she doing, writing an email to Jeffrey Epstein, already convicted of a horrific crime, saying he was her supreme friend?
Well, we've got best pal last week from Peter Mandelson. Now we've got a supreme friend. So both of them, they're mirroring almost the same kind of response to him. And also there are rumours, amounts of money that Jeffrey Epstein might have paid to the Duchess of York to bail her out of her financial woes, which she's had at various stages throughout her life. And again,
as indeed has Prince Andrew. I mean, this is the thing. Both the couple, when they were together, they seemed to be, the South Fork Ranch. They were given and then sold at a far above the legal, the agreed, recommended price. Should we say the market price? But again, these are people who have access to huge funds and yet seem to constantly be financially in difficult straits.
Well, this is what beggars belief. And the Duchess of York, yes, she stuck by Andrew, but this is just further testament. And she said one of the reasons that she didn't want to tarnish his reputation. Well, unfortunately, his reputation is now in the gutter. And at the same time, Duchess of York has now dragged herself back into that gutter with these letters. So it's not a good look. I do feel for the two children because they must get just so fed up with once again.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. And it just shows that Jeffrey Epstein that problem is not going away. It's going to be a perennial one for the royal family. And you could see last week, William, the last thing he wanted to do was stand next to the Duke of York at the Duchess of Kent's funeral. He thought, this is not what I want. This is not good for the look of the royal family. And this again, just, Sarah, Duchess of York, is bit like Prince Andrew, may not be the brightest tool in the box. So unfortunately, she's got the royal family in a pickle. She said she was doing it because she didn't want to be threatened by Jeffrey Epstein, who was threatening to sue and everything. I don't know. It just feels ridiculous that he
very questionable. Look, we know. Look, Prince Andrew's. He was happy to take, to have the company of and enjoy the hospitality of some very, very unsavoury characters around the world. Again, a lot of these people, like Peter Mandelson, they've never met a billionaire they didn't like. They really haven't. But one of the things I find extraordinary is I rather admire Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson for their relationship, even though the marriage didn't work out. They clearly have incredible friendship. That must be wonderful for their kids. You know, I'm not, you know, not inside the middle of their relationship, but I do find it extraordinary how the kids cope with the fact that, yeah, your dad, yeah, you know, when we were teenagers, your dad was mates with a guy who was basically abusing and raping and trafficking girls our age. And are we all just fine with that?
That's what I think. It's incredibly difficult for both Princess Eugenie and Beatrice and their family, that they've endlessly, you know, yesterday waking up again more headlines. You can't get away from it.
No.
So wherever they go, you know, if it's splashed everywhere, you just look at a newspaper and it must be tough for them. And
well, it's tough for them, but then Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson could have made it not tough for them by not being mates with the paedophile, particularly after he was convicted the first time. This is the interesting thing. So we know that King Charles has been very ruthless, wanting Prince Andrew, the favourite son of his mother, wanting him out of the field, wants to throw him out of his big house, and certainly wanting him to be out of the public sight. And again, Prince Andrew ain't going away quietly. There's every opportunity, every family event, whether a celebration or a funeral, he makes sure he's there, doesn't he? He's at the front. Hello, make sure I'm here. I'm still in the fold. He's desperate to get back. He will not take no for an answer. We seem to have a similar situation with Prince Harry, who said he wants none of it. He wanted a private life. He went off to California, decided to put his entire private life and his relationship with his brother and his father straight into a book, onto Netflix screens. He's been back, but there's been a lot of talk that he is kind of coming back to Britain. He met with his father for the first time in a long time, not with his brother yet, but that he wants a way back to be a half-in, half-out royal. But the message has come back from Buckingham Palace, not going to happen.
Yeah, and what seems to have happened, the Sussex PR machine who has suddenly gone in, look, we're coming back. You know, after that trip when the well child, and he did various things, goes up to Ukraine with or without the blessing of the British government, with Yvette Cooper, whose trip to Ukraine was completely overshadowed by Prince Harry's visit, and then he disappeared for an hour. Did he go and see President Zelensky? The point is, they now think, well, this is showing we're back. But actually, the king is saying, absolutely not. What he wants to do is restore his relationship with his son and get him to shut up and stop bleating to the press. Yeah. Well, what's happened since? We've told that there were tears and everything was very emotional. We're hearing everything. Well, who's doing it? It's not the royal family side. Yeah. We know which side is trying to do this. So they must be, again, rolling their eyes and just saying, shut up for a change.
This is the thing. All you need to do is prove that you can have a conversation with them without it going in the papers. And that's the thing. You know, you can understand why William's going, nope, nothing comes out of that family, zipped it, no, it's not going to happen. Here's the thing, though. Is there talk of Prince Harry bringing Meghan and his kids back to this country? And is that, if so, is that, or leaving the family? There's lots of talk about trouble in that marriage, or here's the thing: is it because, look, actually we're not really making it in California, we're not the sort of, the royals abroad, we haven't got that status, we're not making the money we want, and we want to come back for a bit of HRH status?
Well, that's basically it, but they're not going to get that. Well, of course they can come for a holiday at Balmoral, but and do all the family things, but as the king has said, and the Queen, the late Queen, quite Catherine, rightly said, you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it. If you're in the royal family, then you have to take on what that means. And it's not a lot of fun a lot of the time. It's mundane. But at the same time, they want the money side of it. And if you're going to earn money, the king is saying, then you go and do your own thing. And whatever you want to do. Yesterday, we saw them at some Kevin Costner thing, parading themselves, just trying to prove that they're having a lovely time and at the heart of something. How much was that stage managed? I don't know. So the Sussex PR machine is in full gear, and William is not only frustrated with Andrew and Harry, I'm pretty sure he's frustrated with our football team, Aston Villa, at the moment. So he's got a lot of problems on his plate at the moment.
Rupert Bell, enjoy the golf when it starts. Talks to our correspondent there. He loves it. He loves his racing. He loves his golfers. Rupert there. I'm never quite sure how much he loves the Royals, to be fair. Sam Armstrong is still with me. Look, I mean, we're talking about really really important stuff affecting our economy and really stuff affecting our national interests and people's safety in terms of Palestinian state recognition and all of that. But the royals, they keep on coming up now. They know this is, we have the royals, the king and the queen and the prince and princess of Wales doing their stuff that they do well for Britain, doing the rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump, doing what we need to do to maintain those good relations. And then you've got these two. You've got Prince Andrew and his other half, or ex-other half, but they're still, big mates. And you've got Prince Harry and his other half constantly throwing, a clanger in the works.
Yeah, you only need to look at last week to realise just how important the royal family are to Britain. Donald Trump seemed delighted. He was sort of eager to give us a free trade deal, a further trade deal, because he'd had the red carpet rolled out for him, the carriages, the pomp, the circumstance and everything that comes with it. So that is one of our big tickets on the global stage. But you're right. I do just wish these two that are clearly the bad apples in the family, right? By your own admission, you have to see that at this point.
Yeah.
Please, shush. Go away.
That's it. Just shh. Yeah. 12:46 is the time. Up next, we are going to be talking to the brother of one of the 20 hostages still believed to be alive, still starved and beaten in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza. And we're going to be talking to the brother of the man who was forced to dig his own grave for a propaganda video. That's up next. I wonder what his brother makes of the decision for Britain to recognise a Palestinian state. That's up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
I hate to say.
The other thing that's absolutely extraordinary about this is that everybody who's there talks. I mean, there's awful things happening in that war. I don't want to deny that. But this won't make one iota of difference to one Palestinian child or individual or so on. It strengthens Hamas's control over the region because they can claim this as a victory internally. So for the ordinary Palestinians, it doesn't do anything either. What good does it do?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me. 12:50 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Not much common sense there in our government. Yesterday we had the announcement from the Prime Minister Keir Starmer that Britain would be recognising a Palestinian state. We've already seen a flag being raised at the Palestinian now embassy in London. This has been seen as a reward, a victory by Hamas for the October the 7th massacre and the continued holding of hostages and waging war against Israel. We're told that's not the case by the Prime Minister, but maybe Hamas sees it differently, and certainly many others do. One of the people who may well see it differently is my next guest. He is Eli David. He's the brother of the current hostage still being held in Hamas tunnels, Evitar David. Very good, it's terrible to say good afternoon to you, but good day to you, Eli. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Julia.
Look, a lot of people, we don't want to show the footage while you are on air, for obvious reasons. We've shown it to our audience already, those who are watching on YouTube. The footage of your brother held captive for almost 2 years now, emaciated, looking incredibly weak, being forced to dig what he said was his own grave by Hamas for a propaganda video put out at the beginning of last month. What was your reaction to Britain, Australia, Canada, France today recognising the state of Palestine?
Thank you, Julia. To put things in a bit of more context, Evitar was taken from the Nova Music Festival. It was a festival which invited people from all nations to come. More than 20 different nationalities came to rave in this festival. Evitar was 22 back then, in the age where you go to a festival and travel the world and experience and start your life. He came there with his friends and he was kidnapped, and he's still being held, tortured in the dungeons, the tunnels of Hamas in Gaza, like dozens of others. And as you said, we saw Evitar that emaciated, and I truly thank you for not putting it right now on, because I cannot watch those photos.
I can't imagine.
Evitar was barely recognizable by me, by my parents, by my sister. He was starved intentionally by his captors. So it's not because they have no food. Those terrorists have plenty of food. They are just deciding who gets it and who doesn't.
And many released hostages have testified that they would eat full, that their captors would eat full meals in front of them, and then they'd get half a bit of pita bread between, 4 of them.
Correct. And my brother was a healthy man, a masculine guy, just trying to have fun and do his own music.
Festival. Well, indeed. I mean, I was in Israel a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the Nova Festival site, and the thing that struck me was not just the huge numbers of people who died or were taken hostage from Nova, but these beautiful young people, and your brother among them. There's these beautiful young people in the prime of their life, some of them the age of my own child, just at a party, and then this horror happened. What is your reaction then, knowing that these conditions were put on Israel that they had to agree to, or there would be recognition of a Palestinian state, but no conditions on Hamas, because Hamas is still holding your brother, and we think another 19 people still alive, and another 20-odd bodies of hostages they took, still holding them, still using their own people as a shield, still threatening Israel. What do you make of the decision by Britain, supposedly an ally, to recognise a Palestinian state while your brother is still being starved and tortured underground?
So, as we can tell, Hamas is celebrating this decision. And if Hamas is celebrating that decision, probably it's bad for my brother, it's bad for the other hostages, it's bad for the Palestinians themselves. How cynical it is, how cruel it is. Their logic is just not like our Western logic. So they see this recognition as something good for them. It gives them the strength to be more stubborn at negotiations, and it makes the lives of the Gazans more miserable, and it makes my life more miserable, and they have more time to torture my kid brother, my 24 years old brother, in the dungeons of Gaza.
Do you think this has emboldened Hamas? Because we know that, we've had Hamas leaders, not just in the last 24 hours, but even when this was first mooted a couple of months ago, that this would happen with these conditions on Israel, that we had Hamas leadership, celebrating, saying, this is a victory, this is a reward for, it justifies what we did on October the 7th.
Sadly, the only thing that Hamas understands, and that's what we saw, up until that point, 2 years in that very painful journey, we saw that they only understand pressure. They understand military pressure, they understand political pressure and economical pressure. And then those are the channels we should focus on. And in the short term, we have to make sure we do everything to get rid of this evil and get back our hostages and also make the future of the Gazans better. And that will happen only when the hostages will come back. So we have to be very focused on this issue. And after that, on the long term, it's not my job, but leaders around the world, as much as the UK can bring a political solution, a long-term solution, a peace treaty, if you'd like, for the region, for Gaza, and for Israel.
We're often told here in the West and in the UK particularly, that your Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is very unpopular, that many of the hostage families think that he's part of the problem in terms of negotiations to get your loved ones home. And there's lots of disagreement in Israel. But one of the things I found when I was in Israel was how huge the agreement was on the importance of getting the hostages home. You can't walk past a street corner without seeing yellow ribbons, bring them home, waitresses in the restaurants wearing those T-shirts, the names and the faces of the hostages, and particularly those remaining, like your younger brother, they are everywhere. They are staring at you everywhere you go. This is a whole nation sort of will to get your loved ones home, isn't it? The nation is behind you on this.
It is, and I believe also the free world should be behind us in this issue.
We should.
And this other issue of the conflict, it cannot be, and this war, it cannot be on the back of my brother and the back of the other dozens of hostages held by Hamas right now. And it is I think, the most consensual thing right now in Israel. We have to bring back the hostages.
What is your message to our Prime Minister Keir Starmer today? He's patting himself on the back. He's doing the right thing for peace. He thinks that this is going to bring about an end to all the many long-term difficulties and problems in the Middle East. What would you say to him today?
I want him to say the same things to my mother, to look in her eyes and to say the same thing to her. I want him to look at my brother's picture from that grave he dug to himself, look in his eyes, and then in my mother's eyes, and tell her the same things. I want him to meet with us, to meet with me, and tell us the same things.
And what would you say back to him?
That he should listen to us more, and he should be, as the one of